Calling to order the Tuesday, April 29th, 2025 budget work session of the Berkeley City Council. Ms. Mitchell, please call the roll.
Councilmember Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Black. Mayor Pro Tem Gavin.
Here.
Councilmember Hennon.
Here.
Councilmember Patterson.
Here.
Councilmember Vellani.
Here.
Mayor Dean.
Here. Our first order of business this evening is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Support. Motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Gavin with support from Councilmember Vellani. Any changes or additions? Seeing none, Ms. Mitchell, please call the roll.
Gavin.
Yes.
Hennon.
Yes.
Patterson.
Yes.
Vellani.
Yes.
Baker.
Yes.
Dean.
Yes, tonight's agenda has been approved. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There is no public here to open public comments, so let's move on to tonight's agenda. Ms. Mitchell, will you please read our item?
Budget work session, matter A, discussion of the proposed fiscal year 25-26 City of Berkeley budget. A, Parks and Recreation. B, facilities. C, Public Works garage, street sidewalk funds, infrastructure fund, community field fund. D, public safety, dispatch, animal control.
Okay, thank you. As we did last night, we're suspending normal decorum. Council can ask questions. If it gets to a level where I have to be an air traffic controller, I will jump in, but last night was great. Hopefully we'll have that same thing this evening. So with that, Ms. Van Vleck, take it away.
Good evening. It's quite windy. So we're going to need a new roof and public safety. The CIP. Perfect segue. So last night, the bulk of what we were focusing on was in the general fund. So there weren't very many CIP items. Tonight we'll go through, as you can see, Parks and Recreation, facilities, Public Works, and public safety, and several of those really capture our CIP items. So we will be very similar to last night. What we're highlighting is really what changed from your guys' council approved for 25-26 to what our recommended this year is for 25-26. That will be the highlight throughout the slides, in addition to what the CIP items are. We focused, as you know, the CIP is 6 years. We focused on 3 because that's what we're budgeting for, but you guys have the CIP so you can see the out years as well. But what we focused on here is primarily this next year, but also adding in what we put in for the next 2 years. And so we'll cover a lot of that. There have been some questions along the way, and quite a few of them are questions regarding some of these special funds. So we tried to answer some of them throughout here, and then anything that we hadn't answered, we can question and answer at the end. So kind of similar to yesterday, we'll have a quick overview. It's not on here, but we'll just have a really quick overview, a little bit quicker than yesterday's because it's really just about our CIP, and then we'll jump right into Parks and Rec and go from there. Okay, so looking at the CIP, sorry, I lost it. There we go. So looking at the CIP, the summary of this is on page 31 of the budget document, if you guys are following along. And then that's a summary, very similar to what we're looking at here, but the CIP in the budget document, those pages start on 54, and then it'll go through, there's quite a bit of the CIP because there is, I don't know how your guys print it out, by the way, but it prints out kind of funky sometimes if you don't do it correctly, which I didn't know because this is what happened to me.
Oh.
But that was my fault. But it's in there, and then on page 58, there is a breakdown similar to what we're about to go over. And then this is all of each CIP item is listed out in here. And if you're looking at it electronically, the budget doc, if you just click on the item in this, it'll take you right to the explanation of each item. So just to give you a quick. So this looks at the CIP. The pie chart is specifically for 25-26, what we showed you in the table, the 3 years, and this just shows it by fund. So Carl can speak a little bit to this because I think it really helped staff this year to understand how much money roughly each year we have from each fund to go towards capital improvement projects. I don't know if you want to expand on that.
And I gotta get up for this one, sorry. No singing, but just talking. Okay. All right, so this is a great illustrative of really what we have available to us. So when we talk capital, we talk facilities and all that kind of good stuff. This is a great summary. The next one is by what we're buying, but this is by funding type, by the general fund. So I touched on it a little bit last night. The general operating fund, our general fund, has about $500,000 available to it for capital. So that's after operating supplies and contractual services and everything else. That's about what we have available. So when we talk about that, that is police cars, that is DPW cars, that is equipment, that is IT, that is all of that kind of stuff. A very small amount on a $14, $15 million budget. What we're going to be talking about a lot tonight is streets and infrastructure and water and sewer. So again, part of this was determining how much we have available to us to do the lead lines, to do some paving, to do what amounts do we have available. So within our water and sewer fund, we've got a core, I'd call it maintenance almost, where we spend about $500,000 to $750,000 annually lining the sewers, so our sewer lining projects. And then we've got another $1 million in, it's escaping me, what's the other million? Lead service lines. So again, just the $5,000, $10,000 individual lines that we do one by one per se. So that's really a core of about $2 million, $2.5 million in the water and sewer fund each and every year for capital related to that. So what do we have left to do all of the other, the lead line projects, the street paving and everything else? So the reality is we've got about $1 million in our water and sewer fund. Again, not a whole lot. We've got our infrastructure fund, thank goodness we have that. That's about $1.5 million to $1.6 million. So this is the estimated millage 3 years from now. So $1.5 million to $1.6 million available. And then local streets is pretty much spent. We don't get a whole lot of money for local streets. But in major streets, we've got about $200,000 available. So all in all, we've got about $3.5 million available. And so what you'll see in the budget document is our approach has been, okay, we have $3.5-ish million. What can we spend it on? And there's two substantial projects which we'll get into. But really what we've done is committed 100% of our infrastructure millage first. And we had some fund balance left in the general fund. So it was the general fund and infrastructure first. And then you'll see here there's almost no water and sewer line money being spent in year one. But then when the major street fund money dries up, it all comes out of water and sewer and infrastructure, and that's where we use up the rest. At the end of the 3 years, those funds have a big fat zero. But again, this is just helpful to gauge exactly what we have. Parks and Rec usually has about $100,000 a year to spend on capital. Solid waste, again, it's as needed. That's your chippers and your, the usually leaf-related stuff that we know and love. And then again, the Public Improvement Fund we'll touch on a little bit. That's the money we're starting to set aside for fire trucks and larger capital-related items. So you've heard Crystal say yesterday we're starting to set the money aside now. This is the first time we'll spend it. So the fire truck needs to be built in installments, and so once we have enough to get the process going, the down payment will be made in year 2, and then the balance comes due when the truck's done in 2040 or whenever they finish the truck.
Right.
So, but that's what we like about this, this summary. And so you'll see, and when we start talking about the individual pieces, this is how it all relates together.
Thank you.
How much longer do we have on the infrastructure millage?
Is it 29?
You got me at that part.
The only reason I say that is because on the CIP, you see it stop it.
It was levied in 18, or
Was it 10
excuse me, it was
years?
voted on in 18 and
Was
then
it
levied
10
in
years?
19
Yeah.
for 10 years, right?
Yeah, I think
It's-
that
yeah.
Yeah, it does take it to 20.
You show it on the CIP as, when you look at each fund, it's out on 29, 30.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
I'm
one.
in a row for you guys.
Soon we need to.
Yep.
That's correct.
And again, this helps with why do you need it renewed? What are you spending on?
Right.
All of those kind of good stuff. So again, part of the revamp of the financial statements itself is tell the story. Tell the story of here's where we're spending every dime of that millage. It's not for salaries, it's not for this, it's literally, and you'll see tonight, it's this road, it's lead lines, it's these kind of things. So if it's there and we tell the story for years and years, by the time it gets time to renew, hopefully, they've heard the story and they understand what's missing.
Okay, so very similar, well, this is the CIP for the next 3 years, just told in a different way. So by what type of purchase? So we broke it out into vehicles, technology, machinery and equipment, roads, sidewalks, pathways, storm and sewer drainage. The storm and sewer drainage is the sewer lining. Water distribution, so our water infrastructure improvements, parks, recreation, cultural services, and then buildings and property. So again, just a part you can just kind of see in the pie chart, obviously, well, I don't know if it's that obvious, but a large portion of our funding is in our roads. And again, as Carl stated, thankfully we have that infrastructure millage, or that wouldn't be possible for us. A couple things to note, and we'll go into these projects a little bit, we can dig into them a little bit deeper, and if we miss anything that you want to know more about, we can circle back to it at the end. But sidewalks we touch on a little bit, but we can kind of just get it out of the way now. We could talk about it in length if you guys would like to at the end of the night, but basically, obviously the sidewalk program, the last time it was done was 1 year ago? Was it finished 1 year ago?
2 years.
2 years ago. So we're talking in turn, we budgeted to do it, that's the seed money to kick it off. It would be special assessed if we did it the same as we've done in the past, but we're talking internally about our strategy there, and we'll come back to you guys with that. But we put it in the budget so that it's there to
I
start
got
with.
my only question, so then the homeowner pays back?
Yes,
the second
yep,
time.
yeah.
And then my view on that, it's special assessment. Unless they give us a millage, then that's something we potentially look at to sweeten the deal for them to pass it. But there's no money to do it if there's not a millage.
Correct. Yeah. It has
And
to be
even
paid
if it's
for
when
one
you
way or the other.
renew the infrastructure millage, if that's bumped up a little bit to cover something on road, that's an allowable cost for that fund as well. And obviously, our main priority right now is paving and lead lines.
Yeah, I was considering that when we ask for that, we maybe ask for more, because I do think it's popular and we've shown that we've demonstrated, that we're using it well and responsible.
Okay. All right, with that, we will jump into Parks and Recreation. So Parks and Recreation has its own fund, the Parks and Recreation Revolving Fund. You can find it in the budget document on page 38. And then I said also, if you want to look at the CIP, it starts on 54. There is one item, and I won't take the wind out of Dan's sails, but there is one item to talk about that's in the CIP, but page 38 in the budget document is Parks and Recreation Revolving Fund.
And 102 in the line item details, even though you're not allowed to look.
Yeah. Yes. Through 117. It's a long one.
So what we have in front of you, Parks and Recreation wise, is we've moved to a public service model. All of our maintenance costs have moved from the 208 fund to either a public works fund or a facilities fund. And then we have also created for community, for number one, an enterprise fund, which all of the maintenance costs, labor costs, things that we do on the field that will come directly out of that fund, so people can see that the money going in from the school district and the dad's club is coming out of that same, and we're not pulling from other places. CIP items that we're focused on is the concession stand and community center bathrooms. Both have been identified as a important piece, and with the aging community center, anything we can do to make it look more presentable is going to be the best thing for it. The concession stand bathrooms have been closed since right around COVID, and they need some extensive work, but it's been identified with the amount of baseball and with our agreement with the dad's club and the school district that those are important for people. Being around that area when there's baseball and softball and soccer and track and tennis, everybody's looking for the bathrooms, and we have some porta johns out there now, but they see the building and they're like, why aren't these open? So, and then just other things with maintenance costs, just we want to update and excuse me, just make things look and feel more welcoming at the community center. Each room can be used in a variety of different ways right now, but I think there's a specified space that we can use for meetings, advisory meetings and stuff like that. Move those all to the community center from this room here. And then just continue to utilize the building as best as we can with what we have. But that's kind of spread out over the couple of years.
Dan, how long do you anticipate the concession stand and community center bathrooms taking to once you start?
Yeah.
How long is that project?
I would guess,
Should be pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically remodel, it's a refresh, new fixtures, paint. Some of the ceilings come down, so we're doing the ceiling. But I know we're looking at trying to repurpose a grant that we would have.
Yeah.
If that doesn't come through, it's in the CIP for next year. So.
Okay.
that would also include HVAC units for that concession stand building to allow heat, which will hopefully increase the longevity of the pipes and everything that's
Sure.
in the building itself.
Yeah, extend the usable season.
Yes.
Yep.
So it's a twofer.
Yeah.
No, that's good, thank you.
Will that get functioning HVAC before this room?
It's
You mean this-
functioning tonight.
I heard it was hot here last night. A little cooler tonight.
And just on a separate but yet related event element here, is the foundation that being addressed not with grant money?
Yeah.
The community center?
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, that is actually coming to a council meeting May 5th.
Oh,
So
nice, okay.
There, Alex has been working with contractors to make sure that back northeast wall is usable, or is holding the foundation, new windows, new paint, making sure that everything is in standing order.
Great, thank you.
I think that facility assessment had told us that building was structurally was in decent shape. Cosmetically, not so much.
Yeah.
So I think the focus is bringing up the park cosmetically, make it somewhere inviting that people come to. And
Yes.
right now,
Oh, I get it. I mean, we've all been there.
There are plans every year to add a
Yep.
little bit. And it might not be in the CIP, but I actually think it's in the maintenance budget.
it's in the maintenance budget.
Different room each year.
Yeah.
Nice,
So focus on the front to start and then work our way to the back.
thank you, great.
Any questions?
Is there, just for Parks and Rec, is there talk about rehiring a replacement? Or would that come out of the budget, or?
For senior programmer?
Yeah.
So we have just posted it internally.
Yep.
We've identified someone internally that we really like for the job. We posted internally for now. Yeah. So yes, and it's in the budget.
And then we would replace the office administrator spot
Yeah.
if that person is the person that's selected.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan or Parks and Rec revolving or Com 1? That is on page 48, by the way. We've talked a lot about Com 1.
I mean,
Okay.
Cool.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Senior activities, do we touch on that?
We can. We didn't really. It's smart bus money in and out.
Yep,
But if
yep.
you guys want to, does anyone have questions about that? What we get for it, where it comes. We kind of talked about it recently at the council meetings because we just. But there aren't any big changes, so we didn't really put it in here for discussion. But if you guys do have questions.
Yeah, it's very similar to CDBG, whatever we're looking at, it's basically.
Yeah, and Dan's given some pretty great numbers for that too.
Yeah.
But for the public, so I'm simultaneously working on a presentation for the 19th, and I would like to get some numbers in for that. So we're behind schedule, and Alex is not here. Do we want to go? Do you want to go forward?
Yeah, go forward and.
Behind schedule, we're ahead.
That's what I meant. Sorry,
Yeah.
we're ahead of schedule.
Stay where he's at.
The numbers guys always.
Yeah, come on now. I got a plus.
We're ready to go if they're not.
No prices.
Yeah, that's probably better.
Yeah. All right. Skipping ahead. Public safety. Page 35 in the budget book. Page 40, I believe, in the line item if you are following. Do you want, Matt, do you want my computer? I put your notes in here.
I've got it
You
here.
got 'em? Okay.
Yes.
Right before you go, look at the size of that pie. Holy
Woo!
smokes.
Yeah. And I did, when I sent the weekly email last week, I did mention how much our budget is and what percent it is, because I think sometimes people don't realize what a big slice it is. We do realize that.
We spent all day yesterday going, ooh, 0.1.
Yeah.
It would be bigger if we were
Make
policing
it round to
fire.
zero, yeah.
It would be much
It'd be a
bigger
lot
if we were
bigger, yeah.
policing fire.
We had separate.
Yeah.
So I was talking to Bridget earlier today. My feeling is our job is to be ready to handle anything that happens in our city, regardless of what it is. Under the fiscal restraints we have, because we're it. There's nobody else. No matter what happens in the middle of the night, they call us, and sometimes we'll call DPW or we'll handle ourselves. And then if we don't have if we can't handle it ourselves, we need to have the agreements, relationships, and mutual aid in place to be able to do that. And I think we're in a really good spot right now, other than our staffing, but that's really everybody's problem. So that's what we try to do. We try to leverage that. I get a lot of phone calls from other departments and other. I was just with the Bloomfield Township chief yesterday, and he was like, "We're getting a new command post. If you guys need to borrow it, just put stickers on it that say Berkeley Public Safety, or not stickers, magnets." I'm like, "You try to put a magnet on because most of the cars aren't metal anymore." So anyway, that's what our goal is. So we appreciate the support. We have almost no paper anymore, and we've added a couple more things in this budget. But our accreditation, our early warning, our body worn cameras, our in-car cameras, scheduling, fire inspections, pre-plans, we do everything digital. We have just about, and I like where the rest of the city is going with that too, with the personnel recs and everything else. I'm a big fan of keeping everything digitally. So that's what our goal is. Moving on to the next page, we did move several items around from one account to another. We can get to that if you have any questions, but some of the things never really made sense to me, and now that Carol and Amy are here, it makes sense to me. Why, what we were taking, like $10 purchases out of a capital fund. So now we've moved all that, so there's quite a bit of movement around there. One thing I wanted to get a question from Dennis, so thought it'd be a good time to bring that up. Bear is the usable service life for a dog is approximately anywhere from 6 to 9 years, depending upon use. So we're thinking Bear probably has a good another 4 to 6 years. Great program. The initial cost was pretty substantial, but I will tell you that the canines in Farmington Hills cost a lot of money. They were going to doggy daycare when their owners were out of town, and our canine is really low maintenance. It's really $2,500 a year, and that's it. Instead of buying a car out of the canine account, we cycled out one of our other cars and just bought it out of our capital funds of a car we were planning on buying anyway. So that car we bought last year is hopefully going to be in service in the near future here. We're kind of waiting for some things. So that program has really paid dividends. When I was at the shooting in Troy last month or earlier this month, couldn't get enough canines. A lot of fields to search, and they took canines. Every team took canines with them. So really, really invaluable. Bear has a great, and I keep saying Bear, Brian's there too. We're always talking about the dog, but he's got a great reputation. And I'll be honest, I've worked with some dogs that didn't have great reputations. Like, yeah, you missed it was right there. But Bear's really good. So we think it's a very valuable. A little bit of a spoiler alert. Maybe not. We have a possibility of having we're in the hiring process of hiring an officer from another department that is also a canine handler that already has a trained bomb dog. So looking at some stuff down the road that may be very, very ineffective, inexpensive, I should say.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be effective.
Yes.
Inexpensive. So we're, but anyway, it's a great program. Get a lot of mileage out of it. People love to see. They don't care about us, but they love whenever they are there.
I
They like
remember one of the first pictures of Bear in action when he was on top of that Jeep, like not on the hood, but just on top, and was like, yeah. And I was like, whew, because he was still pretty young at the time.
Corey messes with him. I'm not trying to take his ball away and stuff. I'm not doing that. But he does have a great personality too.
He does.
Because,
He really does.
Some of those dogs scare me.
Yeah.
And going on the CIP item, we really.
So yeah, the point of that question was just to make sure we're funding the new position when he retires.
Yeah.
And right now, we still have about $27,000 in it. So we took in, I'm gonna round a little bit, about $58,000.
Okay.
We've only spent whatever $28,000 left, so we still have quite a bit of money. It's about a $20,000 initial investment now that we have everything. And that's including, we kept one of our old cars in service as a backup canine.
Okay.
So we have a backup if his car goes in service, because it's really, you have to keep the dog safe. So it's, after the initial investment, it's a really low price.
So a lot of that really expensive upfront.
Yeah.
Just, it's
one-time.
Exactly.
Okay, great. Great.
And it sounds like you've done some work in even bringing down the expenses. I know we answered that question about changing training.
Yeah, we changed the training group. Our training group where we got the dog from, we made a determination it was a little too aggressive for our needs. So we moved over to an Oakland County training group that had no, I want to say it was about $2,500, $3,000 a year to train with them. But we moved over to Oakland County group, and there were a lot, I'm not bad mouthing that group, it's just, they were looking for a different kind of dog. So, and Bear was learning things that Brian thought was a little bit too aggressive, so we moved him over to Oakland County, and that saved us some money, and also I think gives, Bear's temperament is different too, because we did that pretty early on.
Well, and I remember initially this was a community dog.
Yes.
Who obviously has other skills as well, but that was the type of dog that
Exactly.
we wanted here.
And we can, as long as we don't overwhelm him with a bunch of little kids, he's really good too. We just have to kind of keep him a couple at a time.
Yeah.
So that saved us some money.
Well, he lives with 3, right?
Pardon?
He lives with 3 little kids.
Yes,
Yeah.
and I think 2 other dogs.
Okay.
2 other dogs. So yeah, he's got a really good temperament.
Yeah.
So that helps. Because I've been with dogs. We've had dogs in my former apartment. I was just scared to be around because they give me dirty look.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Next up is the CIP. We really, since most of our building projects have moved over to facilities, really we're down to pretty much just cars. We are budgeting for really pretty much 2 cars a year for the foreseeable future. I think I mentioned before, there's a chance that, if we have a catastrophic failure or, we may have to buy an extra car once in a while, but we're going to try to keep it to 2 cars a year.
Mm-hmm.
This year, we're looking to purchase a Polaris, the emergency response vehicle, which is kind of like the ATVs we use for special occasions from OCAC. So we have our own one of those. The reason we're looking to do that is, first of all, there's only 4 of those in the entire county, and Royal Oak handles the reservation, so as much as we make fun of them on Facebook, they take care of us. So we usually, at the beginning of the year, they reserve them for everything we need them.
Nice.
So we generally have one, and they're used for a quick reaction team, which I won't go into a ton of detail, but it's to be ready to handle things. They can go to where cars aren't. They can carry police, fire, and EMS gear in it. So we're and I've learned, I didn't know this, but Bloomfield Township again, they're purchasing one also, and a lot of cities around us have them too. So what we're doing, instead of buying a car like this, because we save some money, instead of buying 2 patrol cars this year, we're buying 1 plus this.
Nice.
So we're in pretty good shape there. Obviously, engine 4, I think we started budgeting that around 500,000, and then 600,000, and then 650, and then 750, and now we're up to $1.17 million that is locked in for a little while. So, like Crystal mentioned, we're hoping to order it in the near future.
Yeah.
Our first invoice won't be till July of next year, so it'll be in the proper And that'll lock it in, but it is absolutely amazing. I know there's some congressional investigations too, and why this is happening. I mean, everything's going up, but this is like
This is
really,
crazy.
to buy the tower we bought a couple years ago for $1 million
Yeah.
would be about over $2 million now, well over $2 million. So luckily, we're kind of getting ahead of that, because the longer the wait, and
more
I
it
don't
is,
see
yeah.
those prices going down ever. And then that was it for our slides. Got a ton of notes. If anybody has any questions on anything else.
Just curious where the
Sure.
Polaris would be stored? Is it right here? Does
Yeah,
it
we
fit
plan on storing it in the garage.
in the garage? It'll fit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it'll fit there. Down the road, maybe a trailer.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we get it, because we do, you know, we have City of Farmington's coming to assist us for Cruise Fest and a couple other things. We've assisted them, so if we want to take that with us, you know, it'd be nice
Right.
to, and we can borrow trailers from DPW for now, but maybe in the future we can do that and leave it out there. And, but we have room now. The golf cart is not ideal, but we're planning on keeping the golf cart also. Problem with that is you can't carry equipment with you, and you really need that equipment with you.
Thank you.
Sure.
How many cars do we have total?
We have 8 patrol cars, the 3 fire apparatus, the utility pickup, the animal control. I'd have to give you an exact number, then probably,
I can probably tell you in a minute.
probably 6 more. Yeah,
Andy's
it's hard for
looking
me.
right now.
No,
I just ended up with this the other day.
I see your shoes off. Colin.
Yeah. So I got everything.
he has holes in them.
Yeah, I know.
This reminded me, but the carports that are coming up, I'm thinking more generally, anytime we're doing stuff on the roof, or have spaces like that, to start considering, is it time to get solar? And sticking on top of those carports too is, potential use of that space. So,
And one of the things we'd like to do is, right now, when we start a shift, the cars are running the entire shift.
Yeah.
It would be able to plug them in too, so you don't have to leave them on the
Right.
entire shift.
because you need them on because of the electronics.
Yes, you can't shut down the electronics, otherwise in the car you don't have anything to
Right.
make that.
So I have 26 outside of this is from like our liability and property insurance. So 26 plus the Caprice that we, the Chevy Caprice that we
Okay,
have.
yeah, I'll have to, yeah, because I don't. Okay, I'll look at that. Yeah, because we have a spot car, yeah, so that may be right. It probably is right, that's what we're paying the insurance for.
Yep.
We just-
I had you guys audit it and.
Yeah.
Is that across all of the, like DPW and other kinds of vehicles, or just public safety?
That one's public safety, but I can get you any of the departments that.
Just curious, yeah. It's a bigger enough number than what you had originally said that kind
Yeah.
of just made me think.
That's all right.
Chief, I know we talked about FedEx quite a few years ago now, and I know that our contract terminated with them quite a bit ago. That's still the case?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, yeah, and I don't know if they're still around. quite
They might
honestly.
not be, but
Yeah.
okay.
Who is it?
It's for ammunition.
Oh, I heard FedEx like.
So did I.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, get rid of FedEx.
Yeah. Are you guys delivering on the side?
But the company out of Novi that was, they had the cheapest price, but didn't have the best reputation, I guess is the nicest way to say
Yeah, I
it.
think that's a fair assessment.
Company or
The company.
Okay.
Yeah, the animal's fine, but, and we moved there because it was less expensive, but we went back to Michigan Ammo for, and we have our sources for duty ammo, our sources for trading ammo. So yeah, they're not in the picture. And I don't know of anybody that buys them anymore.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Any other public safety related questions?
I can talk all night.
It is a good time probably to talk a little bit about the Public Improvement Fund. So we had talked about the strategy of putting some money away. Even really before we got the facilities assessment, we knew it was going to be something we were hoping to be able to start doing. The idea being, like, you change the minutes to correctly interpret what you said, which is I think sometimes it can be misrepresented when we take money from the general fund fund balance, that people think we're which is operating in deficiency. When it is a rainy day fund, you can do that, but I think the strategy makes more sense or is more clear when you say, here's our crap hits the fan fund, we're going to let that sit here at this amount, but then over here we're going to put money aside for capital. And I know in talking to Carl, other communities do something similar. It's a good strategy. So we're looking at trying to put as much money away as we can. We budgeted $250,000 for each of the 3 fiscal years ahead of us, and we're looking at being able to put $315 in at the end of this year to start it, and that would put us in the place that we need to fund the fire truck.
And just to clarify where the 315 comes from. So in general, if we're doing what we're supposed to, which is come in under budget, the average is coming in 1% to 2%. So if you go over budget, you're violating the Budget Act, and we don't allow that. So we monitor that, and we make sure everybody comes in under budget. If everybody comes in under budget by 1%, that's $150,000. So on average, I usually expect somewhere in the 1% to 2% range. 2% on a $15 million budget is $300,000. So I think we're on that track right now. So what we do is, again, hit that target fund balance percentage that we want for the general fund, leave it there, and then any surplus, rather than having fall to fund balance and then having to reappropriate it and show using fund balance per se, all we're going to do is move that out of there into that other fund. Again, as we said yesterday, it's not restricted, can come back anytime, it doesn't have to be used for a fire truck. Say someone wins the lotto and gives us a fire truck. I had one client that actually happened.
Wow.
We can use it for anything else we want, or if something else comes up, or fire truck gets cheaper, but if stuff happens, the money's there. So
if the state comes through and gives us the
yeah,
money
again,
for it.
they give us a grant for half of it or whatever. Yes, it's always there. But again, the general fund balance is the rainy day fund. This is our, let's start putting money, this is our capital, this is our home improvement fund, our gotta buy a new car fund, this is the city's capital fund that we're going to do there. So one of the questions came up, if you look in the actual capital improvement fund, it's like, wait a minute, it's the BSNA reports show negative fund balance because on Monday's agenda will be the budget amendment to appropriate $315,000 out of the current year's budget over there. So that will cover the cost of the fire truck, and again, to the extent there's any other surplus as we go along, the intent would be to move it in there again with your blessings. So. And that's at the end of the 3 years, we hope to have that money available, and then just keep the cycle going. Again, it doesn't have to be every dime. We talked about before on a percentage basis. If we always kept fund balance at the exact same amount, the percentage would fall as our revenues went up. So at any time, we can adjust that accordingly and not move all of it over there. It'll always come before you for that.
So the lottery ticket fund, is that coming out of public safety? Or is that
Public
manager? Yeah.
One thing too that brings up, so when we order, we don't have to pay anything when the chassis is built?
Yeah, the chassis is slated from the date of order about 24 months out. It'll be built by then and then hit the assembly line. So our first payment wouldn't be until that chassis is entering the assembly.
Then the remainder?
So that's
the remainder is upon delivery.
And that's where you see the
Sorry, there we go. That's where you see the
300, right
300,
there in year
yeah.
2, and then the balance due of the 800,000 in year 3.
So if we ordered June 1st, let's say 2025, it'd probably be more like July 1st of 2027. The chassis hits the assembly line, and then you could have that multi-month period. So at the soonest, I would say delivery would be late spring or after July 1st of 2028.
It's actually cool, they're all guessing I'm going to be dead by the time.
We'll make that.
Oh my God.
You put one of those plaques like it's on the gazebo for me? On the front.
No more
If you heard how much it was, you might.
Or rejacking of minutes.
Big plaque.
No more plaque buildup. We have enough dentists.
Going back to the public improvement fund, I wonder if we also should be, I think this is lower priority, but the parking fund as well, which parking lots are $1 million and we're putting 10,000 in?
Yeah.
So
10 years out.
Yeah, I think the parking fund is something we need to talk a little bit more about how we can get some money built up in it and how we utilize it. Yeah.
I'm not suggesting we change this year, but I think it's something we need
Yeah,
to.
and I think also to your point, right now, the public improvement fund is, the fire truck is the first thing on our list, but then it's, when we come to you next year, we're gonna be looking at year 3, where, if I were you, my question to me would be, okay, well then what's the next thing we're looking at saving for? And so that's when we'll take a deeper dive into the timing of the facility assessment, there was quite a bit, and I won't speak too much because Alex is about to talk about this, but there was quite a few things that Alex already understood that we needed. It confirmed a lot of things, put numbers behind it, and added some context to it. And so you'll see more and more as we filled out the CIP. It kind of came to us around the time that we were finished with the CIP. So there are things in there, but you'll see it a little bit more robustly next year when we bring things forward, and then starting to plan a strategy for how we're going to fund those things.
I think it also helps the facilities assessment as it's not just us making it up that we need stuff. We actually, independent experts,
We can
do
do
something.
Yeah.
Okay.
And one last thing before we leave public
Yeah.
safety on 35, keeping you at that departmental level. The cost increases, so if you see at 2024 is actual for all 4 departments, it's about $6.3 million. The budget for 25-26 is $6.8 million. Again, I've been very impressed with how frugal the chief is and his team. The biggest driver in that is healthcare and salaries. If you recall, just before the end of last year, we gave there was that contract extension where there was a couple significant bumps on patrol and negotiations. Right now, as you know, there's more significant requests, not just here, but throughout. So that's what's driving this fund. Again, public safety is our #1 concern, our largest slice of the pie, and then that's really what's driving it. So if you happen to look between the two, and actually the budget we guesstimated last year, the proposed budget for next year is actually about $200,000 less than that. Some of it's the moving out of the things, the facilities and that kind of stuff, but the reality is, again, I'm used to public safety departments asking for the world and saying nobody's more important than us, so give us all your money, usually with a gun in the budget discussions, but it was totally opposite here. It was this is what we need, and it was pretty much, we understand the city's financial condition, we want to live within it, and here are the things we need, and like I say, it was a great, but salaries for sure are definitely driving a lot of that cost increase. Outside of that, Chief touched on just the few things there. Same cars, same this, same that. There's not a whole lot of new stuff.
And our staffing's probably by far the worst since I've been here, so our overtime's obviously up, but we're at a point now, we've been kind of pushing back training, and we can't do it anymore. We've been doing, a lot of our law enforcement mandatory training we've been doing online, but it's not nearly, so anytime anybody's off or in training now is overtime, so we'll try to fill those positions, thanks to Jessica, but we're in really bad shape right now. It's going to be an interesting summer.
And globally, again, even with those increases, you still have a very sound, balanced budget that we're putting money away into our, capital improvements.
There's some really cool toys we can use, but we'll save it for the lottery fund.
Yeah, I heard about the drones in Birmingham.
Yeah, just about everybody has those or are starting those, so it'd be nice someday, but right now we can borrow them if we need them.
All right. Any other public safety questions? We'll go to facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's bad, I was just kidding, by the way, about going. It really was.
Mine doesn't,
You can stay. Thank you.
Wait, so
Grab the clock now.
have a good night.
See you. Bye.
You were 15 minutes under budget.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. They have time to open my snacks.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
We eliminated facilities.
yep, that's fine.
Yep.
We created it and then eliminated it. On page 30, what is it, right? 34 on the budget document, and if you're going to the line items, it's 33. And I think just to start off, this fund was created this current year, right?
Last year.
Last year?
Sorry, my
Yeah.
allergies are killing me tonight, so I'm very raspy.
Oh,
I'll make it as quick as possible.
okay, go for it.
Okay, so, So we started the budget for the facilities department last year, and it was kind of put together kind of rather quickly. We kind of just took numbers that we had been spending and kind of bumped them a little bit and moved them over. So this year, going into next year, we're gonna really be bumping up our maintenance budgets and our improvement budgets, kind of based on the facilities assessment and things that we've already been working on internally, like Crystal had mentioned. Excuse me. And so that's why a lot of those numbers have jumped pretty dramatically from the last couple of years. It's more just so we can get a little more proactive with things and not wait till there's holes in the walls and things are crumbling and things aren't working to fix them and kind of get the most useful life out of them before they're totally unuseful. So that's kind of the general of the basic, the maintenance and the upkeep part of the budget. And then with, excuse me, the CIP stuff, we're going to be trying to increase our security camera budget, access controls throughout public safety, library, city hall, and salt dome. We're kind of rethinking our salt dome approach after our quote came in for that. And then with the facilities assessment and other things internally, we'll be expanding that CIP into the future years. Just with the timing that Crystal had mentioned, it kind of came in and we were already in that process. So we'll be probably figuring out a better plan for the CIP those further years out and kind of put some of these bigger projects in there.
Do all of our facilities have security cameras?
No. Library, DPW, and this building.
And is there a plan to add them to the other buildings?
Yeah, that's going to be part of the expansion. If they open the CIP, we'll be adding some security to City Hall and to Parks and Rec, and then potentially access controls, upgraded access controls here, and then maybe some at City Hall and Library as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you'll see 150,000 for this upcoming year for security cameras.
So those access controls, is that moving away from physical keys to?
Yeah,
Yeah,
cards.
yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, let's talk about the salt dome. What's
Yeah.
$1 million?
Want to speak to that?
Yeah, so, salt dome, prior to full-fledged facilities, every department's kind of on their own. So we had our wish list and we looked internally, what do we need? And we would salt dome. Well, if you look globally, salt dome compared to a city hall, it just doesn't make sense. It's, even if that building was to fall down, operationally, we could make it work. It has to be a pain in the butt, take more time, dealing with tarps, and we can make it work. So weighing a salt dome versus some of our other facilities, we chose to kick it down the line. That and the pricing came back almost double what it was when we were looking at. So we chose, okay, let's kick that down the line and get some of our other facilities up to snuff, and then take another look at it. I would love to have a new salt dome, one that fits the site a lot better.
How much is it now?
It was, we were in the 6 to 900, depending on.
And that's to replace current size, right?
That's
No,
streets.
Expand
Is that to
it. and
expand
kind of-
it?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a bigger.
Bigger
footprint,
building,
and
but
it'd
it'd be a square building.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we also have to look at, right now, we are the source of Huntington Woods salt,
Yeah.
school district salt. Do we size that building the same size, or we downsize it to fit our needs? We've gone to a lot of liquids, so over half our salt going out of the building is going to another community.
Oh.
So we use far less salt than we used to, so do we need a building that size to accommodate another community, or do we just downsize to fit us?
So they should be paying some of the building.
Yeah, they, well,
So
they pay a
They pay for it.
percentage, we keep it pretty
Yeah.
reasonable for them, we're trying to keep that good partnership, but
yeah, but there is a,
we're
they
gonna
would
put a
need
new
their
building
own,
up.
they would need their own building if we didn't, so yeah, I'm not suggesting we pull in Ohio County or Oakland County and double it, right before the first snowfall, but.
When are
They do pay a little more, it's
Second.
not a direct pass-through, they're paying a little more than we are, so we have some labor costs and
Mhm,
some other
of
stuff built
course.
in.
Yeah.
Some admin fees, but it's not, buying a building.
And I don't think we ever get there, but it is a cost we're not capturing. But I think you answered the fundamental question. Us kicking it down the road, if it just catastrophically failed and collapsed, we can move to
Yeah, it's salt. I may have to buy a little more salt because the rain washed some of the way, and some headaches and plumping or some other issues, but we could still function if it.
Now, I'll throw this out. I've seen tents, like
Yeah.
They're pretty heavy duty
And that's-
tents. Have you looked into those?
It's kind of what we're looking at is it's a concrete wall, but it's a fabric roof.
That's what
A salt tent.
and they're
Yeah.
still in, I didn't
Yeah,
see things.
it's still, I mean, it's a big building, but it's,
Yeah.
That was the 1 million?
that was,
I want to say a lot of it has to happen, is we were going to put a brine making system in it,
Oh.
with a much larger system that we had. It's a giant container, 13,000 gallon container of brine, because we are going more liquid base. That system, I'm assuming, was all,
well, that wasn't included, that was just the building. A lot of it is the concrete.
the concrete too.
Concrete was the big cost. The actual vinyl or fabric roof was a cheap portion of that.
Yeah.
So we had to take another look and say, okay, let's run out some other facilities and deal with what we have. There will be a little bit increased maintenance, trying to keep that building closed as long as we can. But I think if we stay on it, we've got some years left that we can keep kicking that can down the road.
Lottery fund.
Unfortunately, I've seen salt domes like fire trucks that have gone through the roof. I just had a client do one for $1.2 million. And the estimate was a third of that,
Yeah, that's
just a
what
couple of years ago. It's crazy.
What's so special about it? Not
It's
just a
just got a,
Well, is it just the
carport?
concrete
I
prices
mean,
going
the
up?
concrete, if you want to keep that building, the footprint small, you have to have some really strong walls, so the concrete, the floor and the walls are like one monolithic core, and it's really thick to hold that weight. If we had a much larger site, it wouldn't matter, we just build a bigger building, fabric building, and just have a bigger pile, but our site is so tight, you need those
So
walls.
ours isn't
tight.
just the roof, it's also the concrete?
Yeah,
that's falling
concrete,
in?
the majority of the cost is concrete.
What I'm saying right now, current state of that building, we're worried not about the roof, more about the concrete?
No, but a little of both is mainly the roof on
51,
top.
49.
Yeah.
And my understanding, concrete in this area because of is more expensive because of all the interstate construction.
The issue is all the contractors are out there, that's all they're doing.
Right.
They don't want to bid on other projects, they don't want to do anything else, because there's more money than they know what to do with them from the state.
Yeah, I think that just construction labor in general, they can take that job for the next 3 years, or, so even just home building is going to be more expensive because of that in this region.
The Rosies.
Yay.
And with the facility assessment, a lot of those items you're gonna see as kind of maintenance activities
Right.
versus CIP items. It's a smaller amount and it's pieces, it's carpet paint, tiles. It's not one big large item, so you may not see in the CIP, but we are addressing a lot of those items in the facilities assessment.
And I think the bigger stuff will be in the CIP probably
Yeah.
in the years moving ahead as we kind of get a bigger, have a better plan of how we kind of want to attack each building, what the priorities are going to be, looking back and forth. If they don't.
Yeah, but if you are looking at the line, you can see the difference between council approved and this year in facilities, all of the building maintenance items have gone up quite a bit, so. And that is in reaction to this sort of new strategy, which is to not let things continue to deteriorate and try to tackle them as we can. Anything else? Any facilities related questions?
How are the chargers going? Any maintenance we need to do with those?
We had a few little issues, but they were all warranted because we did buy that extended warranty when we had them installed. A couple of the cables had to be replaced, but nothing to this point. Everything's been running pretty smooth.
Nice.
Still getting a lot of use, so.
Good.
How much do we get off them?
We charge just barely more than what we would pay, so I mean, it's kind of break even. It was never kind of, I don't think we ever wanted to make money off of them, but I mean, I think we're kind of breaking even on that. But they're getting consistent use, and there's rarely a day where there's not something coming in from them. So.
Yeah, I can see the library one from my house all the time.
Yeah.
I use it all
Popular
the time.
destination.
Oh, you're one of them.
Yeah.
Do you know how often the one at the park is used comparatively?
I don't have it right in front of me, but they're used more than I actually anticipated they would be. I think you get a lot of people park there, do like their overnight charge, which they're paying, that's great. But I go by there pretty frequently, there's usually at least one car And sometimes too, there's been days where all 6 are being used at once. It's great.
Yeah, I live by Oxford, and usually when I'm going for a walk, there's at least one car there.
Okay.
In the library, even when I drive by in the morning for the gym at 5 a.m., there's cars parked there, every single.
There's always,
Yeah.
Are there software upgrades to the charging stations that,
They automatically update.
Just they
They're on
just
a
do it.
cellular signal, so they will do like some internal upgrades. There hasn't been anything pushed out that we have to do on our end
Oh,
up to
okay.
this point, but
It's just firmware stuff.
yeah,
usually.
from that's what I was like, that kind of auto upgrade.
Where does the, kind of the energy loan revolving fund fold into all this, or savings from energy in, kind of the upgrades that we've done in terms of energy
Right, I
savings?
think-
And then not only like longer term planning, but as part of the facilities assessment, I know all that kind of layers together.
Yeah, I think now that we have the major HVAC system here done and we have an energy monitor on this system, we will be able to kind of monitor that usage and recoup some of those funds that we're saving and reinvest into that revolving fund. Same thing with the library, won't be as substantial there, but this building will have pretty substantial savings. And then we'll kind of be just figuring out what we want our next project to be, what the next investment will be, and how we kind of want to just keep that flowing and what we want to do next with that energy savings.
And is that plan will eventually kind of be sussed out a little bit, written down, so
Yeah.
we can take a look
Yeah,
at it?
absolutely, yeah, we'll have a firm kind of idea, and then we can kind of figure out what, as a group, what we want to do with the next project will be.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Especially because you're sick and you.
Yeah, I feel fine. I just
Okay.
have a voice.
I'm really glad we have this separate facilities fund. I think this is great.
Yeah,
We're having these kinds of conversations rather than scattered across every other
Right.
department, so I'm
It's made my life a lot easier, just trying to do my job, that it's
Yeah.
not, oh, we have money, let's call this person, it's just I can look at it, let's do it, let's go,
Yeah.
what's wrong with the project.
Yeah, because your perspective, you can see the bigger picture, like you said, yeah.
Right, yeah,
It's
it's,
cool.
it's definitely making the process, I think, better for everybody.
I think we fell into the pattern, we didn't have a good voice for facilities before.
Yeah.
So now we got someone saying, hey, I need some money.
Right.
right?
Interesting because of the voice.
Just wait till they can sing in normal volume, yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you guys, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.
No problem.
Thanks for being the voice.
Yeah. Well, it's not much around here.
It's all over again, man. Sorry.
I've lost my mouse. Okay, so now we are on to,
CT's on a storm.
Oh, wait.
Hour and 3 minutes ahead of schedule.
yes. Keep it going, Charlie.
So,
So we've got it broken down. Obviously, Public Works covers quite a bit, so we've got it broken down by some of the funds. So on page 36 and 37 and 44, you will see major, local, and infrastructure funds. 36, 37, and 44. And then again, you'll find the CIP on page 54.
So in these funds here, you see 3 separate projects. What we're looking at is Bacon Avenue. We kind of took a break on projects for a year or two. So we're looking at Bacon, a full mile stretch, from 11 mile to 12 mile, which is a bigger project than we normally bite off, but we're behind. With that, along Oxford Park, that would replace the parking area along Oxford Park. Some increased parking along the Public Works yard. We're going to remove and relocate the existing EV charger, and then we're looking at adding another set of EV chargers at Public Works, on the public side, on the street side. That would, targeted to begin spring of '26, so next spring, and that would take, Mayor knows, it takes all year.
Oh, 100% it
Spring to
does.
fall, so I've already begun apologizing to people on Bacon. Because it's a lot to live through. End result is good, but it's a lot to live through for summer. The following spring, we're targeting Harvard, the section of Harvard between.
Terrible.
Yeah,
That's pretty rough.
I live on Mountain.
Yeah, you live on the good part. What do you?
Anytime I have to go.
I have to drive on the bad part multiple times
terrible.
a day, and we're afraid to drive on it anymore, like we're gonna lose a wheel.
Like I say, for gravel down, it's just easier. It's almost gravel now. It's terrible.
So we're gonna till all that down and just make a gravel road. and call
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
better up north than that road.
I mean,
Bring a grader through.
It would be a,
So that's our next project would be, and that would start spring of '27 and go through spring to fall. And then in '28, and these are tentative, these can change depending on, well, we'll get into the criteria in a minute. But we're targeting Wakefield for the third year. So we chose these roads due to water main age and the condition, water main break history, phaser ratings, road condition, and then the amount of lead services that we know are on these strips. Like Harvard, we know that's full of lead. So why spend that $1 million, some of that money on Harvard doing services, you can just hit the whole stretch and replace them all. If things start getting tight and we have to start pulling money, I'd much rather spend the lead service money on water main that has service replacements built in versus putting those service replacements in, fixing the road, and then coming back 3 years from now. So let's make the best use for our money.
I know one reason we got delayed is because when we started on one of the roads, it was like worse condition than we expected.
Oh, yeah.
So did we do an audit of the roads in the city so we know what conditions under there?
So that's an ongoing thing we're doing. We're doing borings and core samples. What we wanted to do was a lot of mill and overlay work to try and stretch those dollars out. The roads we targeted, we said, okay, let's give us some, not a lot of lead services, maybe 1 or 2. Maybe we just mill, like we did on Wilshire, we milled half of it and just get the pavement back in good shape. Well, the roads we found, the base was so bad that we couldn't do anything. There's roads that literally found 3 inches of concrete. The road was 3 inches thick in the middle. And that's how it's been since it's been installed.
What's it supposed to be? Just
Oh,
for
an 8.
reference.
Yeah.
Do they have 8?
Yeah. So we wouldn't put anything under 8.
Yeah.
I think in May we can go a little thinner. Just because we got a good stone
Just
base,
like
but-
for a reference like that.
Yeah, yeah, so it's less than half of what it should be. A normal sidewalk is 4. And we're at the center of the road at 3. I think it's just, edges it might be close to 8, but the middle, it was down to 3 inches. And we're just skimping on concrete there.
So do we have
So-
oh, sorry.
So it's an ongoing looking at those, you haven't like.
Yeah, so we're looking at, we've got these ones, and then we've got a list of like 7 more that we've identified. But as we continually look at and verify service materials, so it's lead, copper, and we get a better picture of what we've got on the ground, that's going to steer a lot of our work. So the road surface, we've got a lot of bad roads. But let's try and capture all those lead services and use that money to the fullest extent and get those knocked out, and then do the onesie twosies in the other areas before the deadline hits us. Because that deadline, we've got the state deadline, and then we got the federal proposed, and they're moving closer. I don't see a lot of money coming with them. It's just
Right.
here.
I don't know more than this, other than the federal ones being litigated.
Yeah.
So,
I'd love to see sometime where Cumberland's at on that. That poor road is.
It's on that,
North of
it's
12.
up there. It was,
Yeah.
I mean, we're top 5.
Yeah, I'm only looking at the top 3 here. What a bummer.
So we got 29 and 30.
I'd say maybe next year you'll see
Yeah,
yours
maybe,
rotate up.
maybe like the Chiefs point. Maybe by the time I'm dead, that street will be closed. Oh, it's so bad. It is so bad.
And even at this schedule, if you take our 50 miles of road and roughly a half mile a year, it's 100 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't do 100 years.
You can just do Cumberland 2. That's not a.
I have it on mine.
No.
We're just at his house.
Right.
How many houses you off the main?
Yeah, yeah. So
We're gonna pull the CIP up for a minute.
Sean, I'm certainly not going to hold my breath at the state level, but there is obviously a lot of talk around road funding and kind of funneling more money towards local roads. If, a big if it somehow happens to materialize, do you feel like we're prepared to be able to capitalize on that?
I think so.
In terms
We've
of
got,
like being able to actually do the work, like plan it out and do the work.
Yeah,
So each one of
move
these,
projects up.
Yeah.
each one of these projects we can move up, but it's a start to finish, it really is a 2.5 to 3 year process. So you need to be well ahead of construction with design and notification of the residents, give them time to fix.
Yeah.
Part of this is, like right now, we are on Bacon, lateral launching and inspecting every private sewer leak under the road. So if there's an issue, they're gonna get a letter and they may be reaching out to you and they don't. We call them nasty grants because it's a, hey, you have to fix your sewer, and it's $10,000, $15,000
Yeah.
bill. It's not a letter that we wanna give you, but something has to be fixed before we put a new road on it. And it's far cheaper if you do it now, because you don't have the road restoration.
Is there any other pre-work that we can do kind of on top of that, just to be potentially prepared? If
Oh, yeah.
funding does come down.
We are doing that, so like our verification in lead services, taking our number of lead services, the Phaser ratings, the coring board samples. So we've got another 7 streets on the queue.
Right.
Yeah.
I really need
Is
that
any money
right now.
Sorry, go ahead.
And what I'm seeing is, we probably are gonna see an increase in Act 51 money. Both the governor and the House have, agreed on that part. There are other parts being negotiated, but they agree that there's gonna be an increase, so, and there's motivation to get it passed on both sides, so that part's something that'll probably stick around. Now, they might cut other things that impact our general fund, but we'll probably see more road money.
If
We
that-
did ask, Representative Price, we put Bacon on there.
Yeah.
Bacon and the fire trucks in the future are high priority, so if we do get money for one of those, it obviously frees up to your point.
And they both showed up on that website, by the way, so
Oh, they did.
nice job,
Oh, good.
yeah.
Everybody loves bacon,
Yeah.
bacon's good.
So if we get money from whoever, do they like pay back for all these lead lines that we've already done? Or is it just kind of like, too bad you're done with it?
Well, this money specifically is project-based, so it would pay for one of those, like the Bacon project,
The whole
or,
project, right?
yeah.
But I'm saying like for, I don't know, let's say the lead line deadline comes, that 10 times faster. Do they retroact it like might normally with that?
See, and
No.
what I see
Bunch
is,
of people did the right thing.
Yeah.
much, even us, but much of the state is not going to make the deadline.
Right.
We may not even be able to make the deadline, but we're working diligently to it, and
No,
we're going to kind of get punished for.
Yeah, that's, and I
Working
don't
on
want to say that because it's lead line in people's water, but it, we don't gain anything from doing it at a faster pace besides the cost.
Besides being in compliance.
Right.
For whatever punishment that can result.
Right.
It could be a fine or something.
It is probably important to know too, our testing levels for lead have been consistently going down.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Treatment technology has changed, they've changed a little bit of phosphate in the water. Clinton was like the extreme.
Sure.
So our testing number, our levels are going down, but the requirements are getting stricter, so there's, if we ever do hit that mark, you've got to do increased testing, you've got to do increased replacements, there's a lot of additional steps, so.
Yeah. It's the right thing to do, it's just
Yeah.
a costly.
Across the door. I also want to include that we have been applying for federal funding for both Coolidge and Delta. To get some federal assistance right now. This year would be for fiscal 29, 30. Not saying we were a couple spots off last time, in 28, 29 Delta, but we are looking at other alternatives to try and fund some of this stuff.
I guess this would be a good time to bring this up. One thing I was just thinking of is, so people, why are my water rates going up so much? Well, it's the lead service lines, but looking at this, there isn't an easy way to pull out, where all the, what the lead service line expense is. And I'm wondering if we make a lead service line fund where we can, it highlights, this is what this unfunded mandate is costing us. Now, I don't know if it makes a headache for, dealing with that, as far as that. But even if we don't, I think something I would like to see is like those details pulled out. How much are we spending just on the lead service lines every year? How much have we spent so far? So we can, because our water system was really healthy, really, really healthy until this hit, and then just decimated
I think we kind of have that. It's not its own fund, but it's a line item for our lead service line replacements with restoration of, that's at 1.1, a little over $1 million a year. There is a
Broken all
line
out
for,
this year for the first time. It's
Yeah.
in the footnotes, if you look at it. You're not allowed to look at the footnotes, but you can.
But they're there.
They're there.
Well, wait,
Oh, wait,
in the
but that's-
footnotes, it's in here, isn't it?
Well, this is the global project,
Yeah.
but the individual lead line replacements that we do, that, like, we have a single, in our CIP, there's line items that say lead service line.
Yeah.
So it's in there, but I mean, in general ledger-wise, we have a single line for that as well, too.
Oh, okay.
So this account number newly created this year as well, just to track
okay.
it.
Okay, so I think that's sufficient.
Yep.
But gathering the past data that we didn't have
Yeah.
it separated out.
Well, and even that, I mean, it shows that, but if you look at bacon, to Sean's point earlier, that, all of that cost for bacon includes lead service lines also.
yeah, so.
So
by
we
doing
could beef up that
bacon,
description as well, you know, to make sure it says that. So.
If we do bacon, we will cover enough lead services to fulfill like a year's worth of.
Oh, nice.
Actually, more than that, because we know there's a lot of lead in bacon. So we could, I mean, I would hate to offset our other lead service line work. We could say we've done our quota for the year, we've done our percentage. Because what they want is a percentage per year of known lead services. We have a very large percentage that are unknown. We just don't, our records this year are too old. The Eagle won't accept them, so we don't physically know what they are. We have a very good hunch or gut feeling, just looking at the dates. Put in the early 20s, card says lead, I'm assuming it's lead, but states we can't use that card one way or the other.
So what do you have to go knock on their door and ask to look at it?
You try and verify it and
I
correlate
mean,
it.
you're doing that now.
Yeah, we're doing that now.
But you also have to check at the service tab too, where it connects to the name.
Yes, we're looking internally, and then we've actually received a TMF grant to help us correlate some better information to try and use those tap cards. So we can go and physically excavate
Yeah, we've
additional
got that
services.
jetting machine for that.
Yeah, I drove it.
I just wanted to show everybody how this works out, because you look at this and go, what the, you know, Carl is just screwing with us again. I heard Jess say last night she enjoyed the numbers for once, but you look at that and you go, what the heck? So here's bottom line how it shakes out. So this project for bacon is a start the construction season, you know, April, May-ish of 2026. This is a project that's $6.7 million. So we're going to let a contract, obviously it'll come back to you guys. Well, if it's 6.6 and we're starting here, why is those the amounts right there? That's approximately how much we'll spend in that April, May, June in this fiscal year. And so that being the case, let's use up the fund balance we have left in the Major Street Fund. Let's use up the infrastructure funds that we have in there. And again, that's how the budget was built. Nothing for the Water and Sewer Fund this year. So a key component of that as well is we're trying to build up our catastrophic reserve again in the Water and Sewer Fund. If you recall, 2 years ago it was negative $1 million. Last year was 80,000. You know, we're trying to get that back for sinkholes or, you know, those kind of things. So our target is about $2 million. And so with the timing of this and with the pause, the reason we're able to accomplish that is this fiscal year we basically paused and finished up everything we were working on. We still did $1 million or $750,000 with the lead line replacements, but none of the other major construction. So that's going to help as well. So this literally uses up all the money we have left in the Major Street Fund, uses up all our infrastructure money, and we didn't have to kick in any of the Water and Sewer Fund. So the balance of this $6 million, $6.6 million project will be paid next year. There's no money left in the Major Street Fund. We'll use up the balance that's left in the infrastructure fund, and then the Water and Sewer Fund starts kicking in. So again, as was pointed out, it's a April-May start, and then it goes through, you know, October, November, December, or whatever it is. That's how that gets done. Originally, a year ago, it was Bacon Phase 1, $3 million here, and then stop. And then the following year, Bacon Phase 2, stop. So with our cash flow, we're able to work it out so that that takes place. And then, so the next one, which is
Sorry, hold on. Let me just go back.
lettuce or tomato or something. I don't know what's this. No, the next road project we have.
Oh, I was just going to filter down to roads.
I got it.
Everybody loves bacon.
I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I know.
We in the street call him
Ham.
Ham.
I was sad I couldn't find a house on Beacon.
Wait, what?
I was sad I couldn't find a house on Beacon.
And so then we go to
That was your
Harvard.
aim.
It's better to live off bacon than on bacon.
And so again, Harvard, we finished Bacon over the 25-26 fiscal year. Then it's Harvard. Harvard is around $3.6, $3.7 million. Again, the same theory is we use up our balance we have in our street funds, we use up the infrastructure balance, and the water and sewer fund is kicking in the rest. And again, it starts in this fiscal year and goes into the next fiscal year. So we have funding between the 2 fiscal years, but it's one project starting and spanning the 2 fiscal years. And then the same theory behind it for Wakefield. Again, Sean was apprehensive about giving actual names of streets because we don't know. We could get federal funds, all that kind of stuff. The one for certain is Bacon. After that, it's, this is what we think based on priority, but get a federal grant, get a state grant, get a sinkhole somewhere else, and that can easily move on. But the theory's still the same. The funding mechanism's there. We have that much money set aside for it. But sometimes it gets confusing of, wait, I thought it was a $3.5 million project. Why is it, this amount here, this amount there? So, and with that, that's why you'll see at the end of the 3 years, all 3 of these funds basically net to nothing. The fund balance gets down to 0. We're using every dime that we have. And we hope and we think that at the end of the 3 years, the water and sewer fund will actually have a catastrophic reserve in the neighborhood of $2 million. So as much as we want and have to do the lead line stuff, we don't want to maintain our operations at basically 0 cash. That's just a crazy thing to do. So I think about it, we've come a long way. We were negative $1 million, and hopefully we'll be somewhere near positive $1 million at the end of this year in buildings.
That help? You might for those descriptions, so that someone doesn't say, hey, you said you were going to do Wakefield and now you're not. Put just, Wakefield, 12 level Webster, or similar. And then it's just.
Or tentative. We had it on the overhead, we had tentative.
And I have a couple different versions of this file, so I might have opened the wrong one.
Because, I forget what street we were going to do and those people were excited and then
I think it was with the paving project.
Yes.
We ran over and had to cut a street or 2 off, and people weren't happy with us.
Yeah, you want to be able to say, here's what we're planning. We already heard, oh my gosh, the dirt road of we're going to finally do that one. And to your point, it's great to say it. If it doesn't happen, put all the red lights we can on it as far as this is what we're planning, subject to change. But I think it's still better to say, here's what our plan is. And then again, why are you not doing more? I mean, look at the costs of these things, already. And again, what's mandating that is lead lines. It's what's the worst road on the lead line, street that we have to do, and let's go do that one instead. And boy, if we had extra money, that's where you get into your other local streets in mill and overlay and that kind of stuff, just to get things going. But there's just so much money.
Well, comparison Harvard, the first section of Harvard was $2.5 million. For the comparable same project was $3.6 million. That's what we based our construction knowledge and water rates, everything on. It was 2.5. We do a Harvard every year. We accelerated to 3.6 without changing any design. If anything, we took a little design off to save some costs.
And keep that in mind too. I think Dennis or somebody mentioned it too. Of what's all the money going for, lead lines and that kind of stuff. So GLEWA's promised an under 4% rate increase for the past 4 years. That's bye-bye now. So now you're looking at 6-7% increases in water, 6-7% increases in sewer. So when we're looking at that 10% increase each and every year, a lot of it's going for operations now. It's not all going towards lead line. Originally it was, hey, we have to do the lead line stuff. And everything else was water and sewer were in the 3 to 4% range. Now all of that's doubled as well, so less available for lead lines. And unfortunately, we don't know when that 10 is going to sunset. Anytime soon. At some point, we're going to have to stop. We're just going to, we're going to price we're going to be the highest water rates, and we don't ever want to get there. So
Well,
so
seems
we'll
like
keep an eye on it.
all our neighbors are raising it in similar ways.
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly. It's
we're
not
still
just us,
among,
yeah.
So we're still among the.
Yeah, the Blanchard card will still show us looking. Last night we talked about the dollar bill visualization of the tax dollar. I wonder if we could do the same thing for the water
I'm
rates.
working on that.
You know,
Yeah.
to kind of say from, you know, to help us with that explanation and help the city with the narrative around, you know, this is what it takes to have, you know, everything safe and available.
Yeah, we're working on that, and we want to have it done for the public presentation.
Yeah,
It
cool.
was pretty cool. I walked in today and there were 7 computers with a dollar bill on them. Everyone was working on the dollar sign.
Nice. That's excellent.
And we were talking about Leewell raising the rates. We have, SOC was
Yep.
kind of the middleman. SOC was doing their own evaluation and they wanted,
That's great.
looking at capital and
Should we,
what they put money into and.
should we get to the water sewer fund and start talking about
Yeah, we're gonna.
Before,
Just one tiny thing. In the line item, it says MDEQ annual community water fee. I'm assuming that's Eagle instead of MDEQ.
Oh,
Yeah.
Probably.
DEQ
So
is-
just,
yeah,
yeah,
DEQ,
just something,
yeah.
something on
Carry
the
on.
line. I know we're not supposed to look at
I
it.
was just gonna say, what are you doing?
are you in those notes?
It's on 153, so
All
just so you
right.
know. It's under the
Nope, always good.
contractual services.
Dennis caught 4 of my typos and, you know, all that stuff. So we'll get it right.
I'm sure the next administration will change it back to DEQ.
Yeah.
So you can probably just leave it.
So, what page was that?
153.
Yeah.
All right.
It's in the
Under
notes.
contractual
line.
Yep,
services.
I got it, yep.
Thanks.
We'll fix, thanks.
So I'm just wondering too, you mentioned about chargers, doing the Bacon project. You said moving chargers,
So the parking area along Oxford,
yes.
to make grades, all that stuff's gonna have to come out. So we'll have to remove that charger, we're gonna move that parking, narrow it up a little bit, so give us a little more green space in the park. Then we would reinstall the charger in the right location. And then move out to the DPW office out front, we have some additional off-street parking there, the possibility of adding another set of chargers at that location.
Has there been any thought or discussion to adding any in the downtown, like, you know, closer to where people eat and shop and drink and?
We've talked about it, but it's
not city
with
property.
all the other needs, where does that weigh in?
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
city property thing.
City property thing kicks in, right, because we can't like say, you know, hey, good news, you know, I
Right.
guess 24 seconds, you get to pay for a charge.
I guess we do have some municipal lots, but it's what,
Yeah,
but they don't
what-
have the power.
Yeah, there's
One
no,
way
yeah,
of
no
power.
infrastructure there.
I know Alex was researching, there was a group that would.
I think you missed it, sir. We're doing a 100% rate increase?
Oh, yeah.
Alex is working with a group that would actually install them on DTE streetlights.
Oh,
And see, and it's
oh.
kind of out of the norm, but
yeah, but,
Yeah.
it's something where
Creative
I
thinking
don't know
was-
how they,
Input here, and I think it's like a private company that does it, right?
yeah, it was a
Yeah.
private company, but I don't know how that agreement with DTE would work, and the streetlight's only on at night, and there's a lot of moving parts there, but it's, you know, kind of exploring all the options.
Yeah, I mean,
so
the
I
juice-
get it, oh, sorry.
I was just saying, the juice is still there for the street light, it's just turned off, right? So the
Yeah.
charger could tap into that at any time.
And I get why they're at the library, and that is downtown adjacent. But if the goal was, you know,
Yeah.
bringing people to the downtown.
Yeah, we've toyed around, or like, you know, had conversations around what could we do to entice a business owner as they're renovating their property to add
Yeah.
chargers. You know, maybe it's a source of revenue for them if they choose to charge a certain
Yeah.
amount or that kind of
I
thing.
think in the zoning, we,
Yeah.
kind of, you get more parking credits for.
Yes, I do remember that piece
Yeah.
of it.
Yep.
Okay,
And that would be something for that strategic energy fund, but it's,
yeah. Thank you.
so water and sewer fund, it looks like we're increasing 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
If we can move all those projects up,
Not
or
real, not
Exactly, we're
real,
good.
not real.
Hold on.
We're gonna have to build new chambers for
I'm
everybody.
just gonna
that's
say for the audio, that was a
Yes,
typo.
that was a
Yeah,
typo.
that's a
Yes,
typo,
exactly.
I
Amy fixed it.
Good. Wait, I think I need to pull it over back over here. Sorry, everyone. There we
Oh, she's slowing us down tonight.
But we did talk about quite a few of the items on there already, like lead service line replacement program.
So if there is like a huge sinkhole, we don't have like insurance for this? Like nothing?
I don't know if insurance will cover the sinkhole, but we
It's
do
just out in the
have,
city?
we've got, down in the city, we have an emergency contractor that the council already approved, so if there is something, we can call them, we can be here tomorrow, something large.
No, I'm just
Something outside of the realm we can handle.
I'm just thinking like that could be millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah,
But
remember
the county-
Fraser?
Right.
Yeah.
Or was it Macomb? who
It
had,
was in
like,
Fraser.
Oh.
Yeah, didn't it like suck up an old lady?
in the house and like
Well, the insurance would cover
per house?
lawsuits against us as a result of it, but not the repair.
Oh, boy.
It's our line that broke,
Yeah.
and we're responsible for fixing it.
And I don't think, we don't have lines that size. The county's got some big lines, like Talpa, Ackford, and that would be under the county's time to fix those. Most of our lines are smaller, say
Okay.
2 foot, probably bigger than sewer yet. We have ours like this.
So if one of the county lines break, like the one that, whatever, what is it, 7 towns?
Well, yeah, the big
12
12
towns now?
Yeah,
Like then the county would cover it.
county should cover that, if that's our
Okay.
lines that fall.
It's their obligation.
Makes me feel a little bit better, because I'm like, we should probably have millions of dollars sitting there in
But
case.
yes, we
Because that
should.
could totally bankrupt this city, right? And
What tends to happen is it's extended substantially, you don't have it, you immediately have to go issue debt for it. So the initial thing would be borrowing from the general fund or any other fund that has money, and then issuing debt to repay the emergency borrowing. So-
Okay.
It would be a
But you
problem.
don't want to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this all goes back to Carl. We want to have some money
Build that.
Oh, I agree.
aside in a like catastrophic fund. So
Yeah.
we do want to have a cash balance of more than $80,000 in the water sewer fund.
Or a negative million.
Yeah, definitely
How
not
about
that again. And that all goes into what the water rates accomplish also. So it's the infrastructure, and if you want to put any money, it's paying for the water and sewer and stormwater, and then it's the infrastructure projects, and then it's if we want to have anything set aside for something, which arguably we should, because it would be a problem if that happened.
Is there a way to, like, potentially, oh, this is a potential sinkhole, or, oh, this is like, I don't, is there a sinkhole finder? I don't know.
Like a sinkhole finder.
I mean, we try to camera our systems,
Yeah.
you know, throughout the city as
Sure.
much as possible, and that's kind of how we, to our sewer line program, that's how we dictate which lines need to
Okay.
be to stop. So that sinkholes happen, or, so, we try to do.
So you know what, there's something specific you're looking for, you know, you're cameraing those lines, and a certain set of circumstances would say, hey, potential sinkhole.
Yeah, I mean, you'll look a lot like the one on Cass, we saw the road was starting to
Oh,
bump a little
oh,
bit.
there's
So
a-
we
there's a
set the
clue.
camera down, and
Okay,
all gone. Essentially, that's how that came about.
okay.
But those are water lines that usually cause that, or sewer?
Sewer.
Sewer.
So usually,
Oh,
Yeah.
if you get a big water main break, it'll wash water, wash the soil away. But normally sinkholes, that soil has to go somewhere. So sewer is what's carrying that. So we're a little different than most communities. We do a lot of our camera inspection in-house on a much shorter cycle than most cities. We have, I think it's 4 or 5 operators now.
Yes.
The PACP, so there's a international standard that you rate pipes. You go through, inspect them, you're rating each crack, documenting each crack, each hole, giving the residents a nasty gram when the sewer is no longer connected. And that's what drives our sewer lining programs. We take all that information and say, okay, these are the sewers we need to hit. We did take a break when we were cash negative because
Yeah.
we paid for it.
Yeah,
We had
of
to do
course,
some
of
emergency
course.
repairs that probably could have lined if we would have stayed on track.
Be in line.
We tried to stretch them a little bit to make for the next year, and some didn't be next by us. But we are always, the camera's always out. and looking for issues.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you see the addition of the My Neptune 360. What that is a resident portal with our newer meters. That would be a resident portal. A resident could sign up for email alerts if they have a high read or a leak alarm. Well, the new meters are pretty smart. They tell you water's been running, something's wrong, you're reading higher than normal, you've got a continuous flow, or we think you have a leak. So you can set yourself up to receive those alerts. So instead of in 3 months when you read your meter, you have a $5,000 bill. It's, hey, something's wrong, something's running. It's ran for 24 hours straight. You get that.
Do you remember when we
Oh, I do.
sat at the table with that resident and like, oh,
And that's one of probably hundreds of interactions with residents.
Uh-huh.
And usually it's a toilet. But it'll allow them to log in at any time, see how much their water is using. I don't know how much water I used yesterday at 2 a.m. It tells you hour by hour.
that's nice.
And these, again, are all in the back summary, so if you guys meet tonight and they're like, wait, what did you want to say?
Yeah.
All I see on the slide is the name, it's
Oh,
all back in
perfect.
here. Yep.
Yeah.
They've been studying.
Next one is additional read antenna for our automated meter reading system. So originally we looked at 5 and did some modeling and said we could probably get away with 3. Well, we have 1 problem area down by 11 Woodward. We need 1 more. So we're settling on 4. So this would be the 4th one that would basically cover our entire area. And then the last one is roughly about 1,000 replacement meters. So we would stay on that cycle until we get all our meters upgraded to the new style, and then drop back to about 500 or 600 years of maintenance level. Part of the good thing about the Neptune 360 is you need the new water meter for it to be effective. So if we advertise that and residents are interested, it's another way for us to get in the door to get that meter changed.
So when you say roughly 1,000 replacement, that's 1,000 to go, or you've done 1,000?
That's 1,000 for that year. So we've done.
Okay.
We're fiscal year, I think we're pretty close to 700 meter changes this past fiscal year.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, how many to go until, how many
Oh,
years?
we've probably got
until we get
3 or
everyone?
4 more years of this to get there. I say 3 or 4 more years, but that last 500 is going to be the stretch. Those are the people that are really not going to want you in the house. One you struggle with, and we'll have to find alternatives to get them there. The willing participants are easy.
Yep.
They're the ones that call you right away. Yep, change your meter. Both old meters, they become inaccurate.
Yeah.
When they're slow. So you're undercharging. I've never seen a meter. I don't think I've ever seen a meter that where it's been fast. We get a lot of those questions, my meter's fast. Every one we sent out has come back slow.
So we're talking about billing for water. Is there any chance we can go to monthly billing? Because I think one thing people are just not good with math sometimes, and they see that big bill, but if it was broken up into 3, it's easier for them to comprehend. People usually aren't thinking in quarters; they're thinking in months or years.
I think that definitely when we get all the meters changed, the reads, it's just basically push a button. Right now, it's physical. Someone has to go out and read meters. So that's why you record. We read a section, read a section, read a section. When we get to that point, that's something we can look at. And ideally, I'd love to automate all that water billing, stop folding, stop stuffing.
That's
Just come with no bill and it
gonna be
comes
my
in.
question, because
Yeah.
the cost of mailing
Yeah.
going from quarterly to monthly is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah, I was going to suggest it needs to be electronic, and there will be some people that insist, and we need to go to the, well, you pay for the paper, you
Yep.
pay us.
Yeah, there's this fee for that, yeah, DT does that.
Yep.
And we have rolled in some email bills this current year. Pretty well. We had a pretty good response in the initial wave we sent out. A lot of people signed up. Seems to be working pretty well.
And
we did have some people back, but also I didn't get the email, and I want to go back to a paper bill. But that's
And I was wondering, when you get to those last few meters that people are hesitant to charge, if there is just, it costs us more to maintain and to go out and read them if there's a surcharge for keeping your old
$50
meter.
a quarter all of a sudden.
And then it's, they may be, okay, come on.
and a lot of those. I mean, our meters they're well past their life expectancy now. So we're in the 20 to 25-year-old meter. We want to be in the 10 to 12-year range. So we'll be a little more. When we get to the end, we'll be a little more persistent. Make sure they make their appointments and try and get it done.
On the water affordability side, it's my more question for you. Do we have any idea of how many individuals we turned over as delinquent to the county just based on water bills and not necessarily property taxes?
I don't have the exact dollar amount, but it didn't jump out at me as a large number. So one of the things that drives the monthly billing and such is the ability to pay. So one of the benefits of doing it is the lower income user, it basically is a tool to help them budget better, so they tend to just not pay anything when it's a large quarter one, but if it's monthly, They tend to go more, yeah. So what offsets some of those additional costs are increased cash flow on your end, less delinquencies for rolling into tax and those kind of things. So to me, that's another measure to look at as far as do we want to do it or not? Is it worth it? Is it a benefit to our residents, or is it more of a hindrance of every single month now? I gotta pay this bill and that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, I off the top of my head, I don't have it, but I don't believe it was a large number.
There's been no spikes.
Right, exactly.
And I don't think, we have people that pay monthly.
Yeah, we'll take payments, right.
Our average bill is
That's
$400,
what- yeah, we had
$300, and they come in and they pay a monthly fee. Sometimes they're ahead, sometimes they're behind. I don't think we ever refuse a payment if it's something somebody wanted to do.
Yeah. The car will rush. We'll always take a payment.
Yeah, well,
Well, and
Come on in.
we could message that too if we haven't yet. I know in Oak Park they started messaging that. They ended up going to monthly billing because they had a lot of delinquencies, but it did cost. But before that would message, just so people know you can pay on a monthly basis if that's what you're looking, if that's what you need to do.
I don't think
Yeah,
people
and it
know
might-
that though.
Yeah.
And it might be worth doing it closer to like the deadline as
Mhm.
well. Not only just water, but also property taxes generally. Might be worth just trying to do one last reach out before you turn it over as delinquent to the county.
And the direct ACH is very cheap. So,
Yeah.
just remind me.
And on water affordability, we have two programs, two different programs to help
And
people.
hopefully another one coming, maybe,
Okay.
potentially.
So there's programs to help people if they need it. Yeah, I don't think we shut off anyone's water.
the only time we shut off, if we send you a meter notice and we need to get your meter changed if it's not working, if you don't respond to the notice, we shut the water off. If you respond, say, hey, I need a month or 2 months to move some things, fine. But if we get a non-response, we just assume the house is vacant, meter's not moving, we're gonna shut the water off. And generally, we get a call that same day. Or they don't call us at all because the house is vacant,
Right.
which is the majority.
Problem solved, either
So-
way.
But it's not
There's-
an affordability.
Yeah, as far as for non-payment, we won't shut off.
And that also tells you that your delinquency is not as high either. So if it's significant, then we push for the shut-offs, because then you become more at risk of stuff going into tax and that kind of stuff. But with our housing stock as well, there's really not a lot of risk there, because if we take your house over $1,000 water bill, we'll probably recover.
Remember, the ordinance does allow for shut-off. We just don't-
Yeah.
There's policy we haven't done.
Yeah, most places, again, where that flow is good, you don't need.
How many meters do you think we have?
Well, almost 6,900 accounts.
Oh, the accounts, why is that? Yeah.
And that's residential.
Residential, and
And
commercial, it's about
commercial.
6,400 residential, 4,500 commercial. Some of those commercial meters are,
Larger.
yeah, or several $1,000s a piece, and the big ones. Smaller ones are a few $100.
Let's say a 4-inch meter was $3,200.
That's a house. What's that? A 4 inch?
A 4-inch meter?
Is that a house or?
That's a big, that's for like the ID.
Residents are usually, what, 3/8?
3/4.
3/4?
Oh.
Yeah, 3/4 or 1 inch is pretty small.
Yeah, or like a new build, they'll generally use a 1-inch meter.
Any more water sewer questions?
I think we've drained that topic.
You're waiting.
No, I just kind
Have
of,
to flow to the next one.
I'm just, it just flows right out. You know?
Salad with
Oh.
Wait, actually, hold on, we are bouncing around, so let me go back or we're gonna miss your general fund portion.
All right. So general fund, there's not a whole lot we do in general fund, not as much as some of the other departments. The change to a public service model brought a lot of the parks and rec maintenance activities over to public services. We actually absorbed. Joe Nazione was kind of field group for parks and rec. He's over on our team now. That's kind of the big change there. And then CIP items. So a lot of our CIP items are general fund items. So when we look at replacements, we're looking at life cycles, operational efficiencies, things like initial purchase price, resale value. They got a lot of things right down there. what's the expected service life? Are we throwing a lot of parts at it? A lot of big repairs? And the big thing is consequence of failure. So if this item goes down, what does that mean for staff? What does that mean for the community? Is it a single-use piece that we only have one of? Or is it something we have backups? Is it something we can beg, borrow, or steal from another neighbor? Ultimately, each piece is a little different. Pickups we found at 5 to 7 year mark. They're coming out of warranty. We can sell them, get a lot of our money back, and move back into something that really has some minimal repairs. Some of our more specialized stuff, the resale market's not there, so it makes sense to keep a little longer. Things like Vectors that have some high dollar repairs, we want to get those out before we hit those high dollar marks. Try and capture that money. Some of those repairs might be $25,000, $30,000, $40,000. We've had that on one that we've recently sold. 2 months before we sold, we had $25,000, $26,000 just in parts. We did all the repairs in house. That was just the parts to bring it back up to operational.
But those are 500.
Yeah, but they're expensive.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of
expensive pieces.
25,000 in there.
Still can't beat last year's sale of the sweet.
Well, that's the Vector, yes.
The Vector.
That Vector we originally paid a little over $4 for. Kept it 7 years and sold it for $385.
That never happened.
That
I'm still shocked.
But that's the COVID change. We bought it here, prices went up, that price went with it. We're still capturing a large percentage of our initial purchase price back.
Was that the one you repaired?
That's one we repaired.
Yeah, so that probably helped too, right? It hasn't.
Well, that was, and it was not big parts, it was just operational. I think it was the cooler and the hose reel, bearing hose reel.
Oh, yeah, the bearing.
Yeah, those are, they're just very expensive pieces.
Just because she doesn't.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna toot your horn for you, but I'm not gonna say this right, but I was I was impressed to find out that Sean actually leads a class at one of the conferences on like equipment.
Yes, there's in Franklin, there's a public fleet advisors group.
Yeah.
And this year was one of the presenters, and it was Sam, a lot of the older mechanics that I started with that have since retired and kind of now more around the country doing that.
Yeah.
Still something near and dear to my heart. Started as a mechanic, stayed there.
Nice.
Harry.
No, I'm glad you said something. I mean, that's impressive and, you know, adds to your value, Sean. I'm not
That's
gonna
right.
lie.
So we'll see you on tour down the road. Sign
I don't know if
autographs
I'm
and
ready
stuff.
for that.
You don't have to sing. Right, yeah.
I just heard blah, 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 old guy.
But it's a lot of our equipment that we're getting today through these cooperative purchases.
Yes.
This was the group that started those cooperative purchases.
Oh,
We're working
nice.
internally with the South Oakland County Public Works Association to restore that group because it kind of died off. All the old dinosaurs went up the pasture and it kind of died off. So we're trying to get that younger group in that same mindset to work together.
Yeah, yeah.
And why are we bidding this stuff all separately?
Right.
Come together and make something that works for the group.
And it does happen more than you guys probably know of, hey, I need to borrow this part, call around,
Mm-hmm.
and another city's got it. And let's say, I couldn't tell you a time where they just said, we couldn't find that part because that reason. And there's always someone that has that part for us. And just as long as you get it back,
Sure.
then no one really cares.
Because they know they're going to get it back.
Right.
It's quite it's a pretty solid honor system, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I, for another
Burn the
example,
bridge.
at the Legion, when the water main break happened there,
Yes.
it's a 12-inch main. We really don't. We keep supply of stuff, but the main break expanded larger than we anticipated. We actually had to call Nest Nights. That I think it was around 10:30 at night, and Chris was at the casino. He's like, "Yeah, I got somebody. I'll send someone to the shop to get you a 30-inch clamp." And
Jim, poor Adam. Sean was gone.
oh, that was a week of
That was.
At the casino too.
And you did great. You handled it really well. There was like anything that could go
Yes,
wrong went
exactly.
wrong with that.
Yeah. Other
Perfect week
than
to be gone.
Yeah.
Rich was on 2 hours of sleep, so I kind of had to come in and instruct the crew, our young crew, what to do. It was a good day.
Well, thank you for that, and it's good to know that we have that reciprocal relationship with surrounding communities, and there is that camaraderie and,
And it's actually, there's a mutual aid agreement
oh, nice.
coming with the meetings in May, so
Let's
it's,
say not May 5th, the following.
yeah, so it's May 8th, so coming up the next month to it's just a re-up of the agreement between the groups.
Nice.
Any other questions as far as, so, just general fund public, or the next one will be solid waste?
I don't know where it comes from. The lawnmower for the ball field is $80,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, so that is a,
It's not just a normal lawnmower.
no, it's big,
right?
it's like 8 foot, it's, has rollers on it, it's more like for sports field. What we have now is great for boulevards, that kind of stuff, we have those casters, they leave runs. So if you go to a golf course or a soccer field, a sports field, it's a more like that, it has rollers on the back. Still a rotary, we don't want to go to real mowers, a lot of maintenance.
When you say a real mower, what do you mean? Like
Real,
a push
the-
mower?
Like a push mower, like see the, you know, but hydraulically
Yeah.
powered, so that's what
Yeah,
you
yeah.
see on putting greens and tees.
Okay.
This would be something that you'd see out in the rough, kind of the surrounds. Still have a roller on it, give you the nice stripes, much wider, so it cuts your mowing time about in half. You know, you're going from a 40 inch to an 8 foot. That
So
mowing time.
that
is
can
gonna
count all the fields or just count one?
be 1, 2, 3, I mean, pretty much all the fields. I wouldn't want to put it on, wouldn't put it on right of ways, stuff like that. We'd want to keep it for the fields, possibly some partial for smooth.
So if we're increasing efficiency, what does that do for manpower?
Hopefully reduce the manpower.
Right, but then what do you,
Oh, we've got plenty of places.
Yeah.
Directly, we were meeting today
Yeah.
over how we're gonna juggle
okay,
all the, with the public service model, how are we juggling everything?
so they'd be shifted or?
Yeah, so, and that would be a replacement. We have 2 or 3 mowers that are in the replacement cycle due to be replaced. We'd be replacing multiple mowers with that one mower.
It's probably worth emphasizing too, with the agreement for COM1, same amount of people right now, but an emphasis on this field, but there are other fields that we need to take care of. So they're looking at ways that we can still continue to find the efficiencies that we can provide the maintenance that is expected there, and then keep up maintenance at other locations at the same time.
And that would be a general fund purchase that would, the equipment rental, so whenever we used it on COM1, we charge equipment rental to that fund to cover the.
So then when we have that, do we see an input in the other funds then? How does that, like, if the rental is, that was another question I sent out. I don't
So
know
the
if it's
rental
now-
is
Yeah. Yeah, no,
revenue
it's
in the
fine.
general fund and expense. It's called equipment allocation, I believe is the official title within the other funds, is that?
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay, yeah, so, but bottom line is, every time they use it, they in essence rent it. Any other
Sure.
fund that's not general fund rents it. So the general fund gets a rental revenue, and the other fund gets
And that's
gets
in
charged
the
an
line by
expense.
line?
Mhm.
Okay, maybe I just missed it.
And you'll
Yeah.
see that in water sewer, you see that in sanitation. Whenever there's, one department buys it and the other one uses it, there's a rental to reimburse
Sure.
that person.
No, I know we talked about that
Yeah.
last year, I just couldn't, maybe I looked past it. There's a lot
The
of-
easiest place to see it would be COM1 if you looked in that new fund, because there's a labor allocation and equipment allocation specifically in that fund.
Yeah, but then where does it go to? So that's
The revenue is in
expenditure
the general fund,
In the general fund,
Yeah.
under,
because we bought it, so we
yeah,
get.
yeah, so what's it
reimbursed.
under in the general fund?
It's
Sorry,
under,
I didn't mean to, we had a whole meeting on it.
yeah, no, it's,
And all those rates are based on an MDOT, it's a
Yeah,
Schedule C
that's-
rate, we go through and not everything's bid.
And the
so
same
you've
goes
got-
with manpower then, right? So if somebody's working on,
If someone's working here, the manpower gets allocated, based off the timesheet, gets
right,
allocated
right,
to
right,
that
to
fund.
that fund.
Yeah,
And when
so.
we find these efficiencies and, you know, okay, it takes half the time to work, we don't have someone sitting idle, we have.
Page
No,
four,
we've got
plenty.
page
got
4
plenty.
on the line item, at
Yeah.
the very bottom shows property equipment rental, that's where the revenue comes in.
Okay.
it's literally called equipment rental, 669 triple zero. It's about
I got one right in front of me.
it's like 300.
Thank you.
This would have been a question back on major and local roads, the trees. So it looks like we're doubling the number we're planning from 100 to 200?
Yeah, we want to go back up to that.
Okay, do we have I know there was some concerns on staff capacity, do we have the staff to be able to?
We should do that.
Okay, great.
It's free now, because you got a new mower.
We're also automating that process, Ashley and our department's working on it now, it's just online. It's the little PDF, you send it to us.
Okay, so you're making, so you're reducing the labor on it, so it makes it work.
Makes it a little, bring us into the century anyways.
It's your point, makes it possible for us to do more trees,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that, I'm not using all this.
Yeah.
This is my fault. Normally I wouldn't. Okay, are we ready to go on to solid waste?
Like I said, if you looked at the three globally in the general fund, it's actually a reduction year one and then just a slight increase. So, like I say, general fund is really boring this year. That's why I went really fast yesterday, because most places, most departments is just status quo, cost of living increases, again, some salary bumps. But outside of that, then you see what's in the capital. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot. Heck of a lot else.
So page 40 in the budget book is the solid waste fund. And then if you're in the line item, don't tell Carl. 122.
What was it?
122.
So solid waste, we've got our normal curbside leaf collection, elimination of yard waste tags, and their restoration of curbside trash pickup on a bi-weekly basis. So instead of monthly, we're down to a bi-weekly. One thing to point out, our free compost, so our yard waste gets turned into compost, is no longer going to be free, at least to us. There are some operational changes at Sacra that, when I say it's no longer free, we'll have to pay per yard that we get, but our increase, our Sacra increase is going to be less because we found an alternative to run that site. So Spurt Industries is leasing the site, going to run operations there, which will give us a much better compost.
Okay.
Change the process a little bit. Saves Sacra close to $100,000 a year. It also, there was some new permitting that had to happen through Eagle. Spurt was really up on that. Actually, I think the owner, Spurt, the government appointed one of the boards, so he was really aware of that. So they're taking care of that permitting, and it's setting us up for food waste. It's something the state's pushing pretty hard, is to start incorporating food waste into the compost.
Okay.
That compost site with Rochester, the agreement with Rochester Hills, it's a no smell. So there's some issues they have to work through there. But ultimately, they're getting things in place to be able to do that in the near future. Right now, Spurt is handling that in Ferndale, and they're taking it to a Livonia location. So that's something we're looking at. Something else that I forgot to put on here was the purchase of a small chipper. Right now, we have our chipper we bought in 2017. It's a pretty large chipper to handle storm damage, but running on a bi-weekly basis, you really need a backup for that, and a smaller one is probably a better fit for that. Smaller gas engine.
For that
cheaper.
function.
For that function. Now, storm damage, it'd be too small.
Got it.
For curbside brush and most of the stuff, it's fairly small. It's 4 or 5 inches or under. So it makes sense to have that, where you can idle it down between stops. Right now, with the newer emissions on the bigger one, it has to be throttled all the way up and stay that way until we're done. With that emission system, it needs the heat, it needs to work. If you're idling down and up and down and up, it's going to cause problems. One of our neighbors to the south bought the exact same one, and we're doing that, and spent months for service till they figured out that it was an operational issue. It wasn't.
So again, key changes in this fund is the elimination of the tag program. Yahoo, I'm wallpapering my office with the tags, with all the extra ones. It's
Or
gonna
you
be
buying
Give him
them?
to Sean, he has a
Yeah.
idea.
Got some plans.
He has plans. Give him to Sean.
Exactly. So that is a loss of revenue of $120,000 annually. We still have the commercial program, which brings in about $170, and the residential fee brings in about $450. And property taxes are bringing in at $1.3 million. So overall revenues are still just over $2 million. And with that, the budget itself overall is basically break even. I think it's 40 grand of the good in year one, 20 grand of the bad year two, and 30 grand of the good year three. So what we talked about was if we're gonna eliminate the tag program, don't ever bring it up again, I don't wanna hear it,
Right.
you know, et cetera. And then moving forward, what I'm used to doing is, this really should just be, if you think about these programs, what they started with was property taxes. We go to the voters and say, give us a property tax and that'll cover your solid waste. Then 2008 happens, and we lose our tax base and it no longer covers it. Then we had to go to them for a fee. That's really where it should stop. You know, it should just be, here's your property taxes, whatever we can't cover with property taxes is the fee, and then as part of the budget process, our process going forward to you is going to be, do we need to adjust that fee, you know, up or down or whatever, based on cost. And so in the short term, we look like we're in great shape. I think we're set to exactly where we need to be. We've had 2 great years of 5% inflationary increases. On the tax side, we're still looking 3 to 4 for the next year. So those are healthy increases, double of what we've historically seen. What's the time bomb that's out there potentially is when our contract expires in a couple years for trash collection. And so if we see 10, 20% increase in our cost, that's where we might want to do it. Again, which is why we have fund balance, gives us time to do it, you know, et cetera. So we don't want a 20% increase in any given year. You know, we're going to continue looking forward with that. But again, short term, we're at the point now where everything looks very well. Again, we have a steady revenue stream that I don't think we're at such. We're not proposing any increases in the fee for this current fiscal year, even though our costs have gone up. We're still, you know, at a sufficient level that we don't have to do that. So that's kind of the overview of where that's funded.
I'm going to expand on it a little bit because you will see if you're looking at page 40, there's a significant fund balance in solid waste because of all those things. But that is, as Carl stated, if we hold steady on that, that will really soften the blow when it does. When those, what we're expecting to be double digits, we hope that we're wrong, but when those come through, that will soften the blow for us having to raise, you know, that jump. We can smooth it out.
And that's where you start going inflationary, you know, well, 2 or 3% increase in that fee, knowing what's going on, and we get by the time. Yeah.
Competitive bids now comparable to what we're paying are trending 25-30% higher. So what Sacra is working on is maybe just another extension and soften that blow a little bit.
Okay, so
with the 10-year contract, you know, they bid this many years ago, not knowing what the future holds.
Right, it's your
And
best guess.
We've been lucky. We've you know, had to keep those prices down, but when they're opening bids, comparable cities, it's quite a bit higher.
So the fund is self-sufficient now.
It's operationally at a break even,
Yeah.
if that's what the definition
Yeah.
of self-sufficient is, yeah.
Including any capital costs, or we just run, like there's an equipment rental, and I'm wondering now if we're just running from ourselves on that one.
Yeah, so that would
okay.
be, like if we bought a backwater water, and we use it mainly for water, but leaf season, we're picking leaves, it's rental costs.
Yeah, okay, so then that makes a lot of sense.
The
there.
rental comes, the revenue comes
Yeah.
from whoever owns the asset.
Yep, so we're just, I was wondering who we were paying, should we buy whatever that equipment is, and, well,
Yes,
we already own it, we're paying ourselves.
We're paying
Yeah,
ourselves,
so
yeah.
that's absolutely fine. And we were able to get to this point of self-sufficiency because we had those bag tags that came in more than we wanted, or expected, and right-sizing the commercial fees.
Yeah.
So,
And again, 10% increases in taxes over 2 years, that's a big.
I've sat on that side one
Unlike-
time. Which one is it?
I don't even know. It's over there.
Probably
It's
all of
behind
them.
Dennis.
Yeah.
Well, those don't work, we can't afford those.
Right, yeah.
Building
The string
maintenance.
doesn't work.
the string doesn't work.
They never used to.
Where's Alex?
I don't open it, show that one.
He ran out.
He's like, I gotta go.
Before
Yeah,
sunset.
those you gotta have them all by hand.
Oh my God.
Greg, if
Thanks,
you just
Greg.
stand there, that covers
Yeah.
it.
That's actually, you just did it right
Break
there.
it, it's on you, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
The council pays.
I've skipped,
No.
sorry.
It's good. You got it.
Can we get like a sheet or something?
Scoot over.
Turn that back on.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I know we had a question from Greg about the labor fee here. Can you talk about that a little bit? I wrote some of our notes down. There's a
Labor fee where, I'm
62,000.
sorry.
Oh, the
Sorry,
labor
there's
fee,
a
so
60
that,
in solid waste, there's 62,000 labor fee.
So that labor fee, we don't have a dedicated person in sanitation. So any of their, you know, when they pick up toters, assemble toters, Maybe there's a missed trash haul we gotta pick up, setting cans back downtown, anything sanitation related that's not brush or leaves, that's recovered, that's labor, and that's built directly off the
So-
time sheets.
So it's 62,000 that they're doing off time sheets?
So, yeah, so if it's 62,000 we're budgeted for, I don't know where we're at on our actual. We're only, we're at 17,000 so
So we're
far
gonna
this
come in
year.
up 40,000 probably.
Pardon me?
Like we'll be up, right?
Or under.
We're under, so we're at, yeah, so we're, right
We
now
won't
we're at
use
17.
out of it, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have extra.
Okay.
Remember, a year ago, that was an estimate based on that. They started actually tracking it with time sheets now.
So the old time sheets were
In
not
paper,
exactly,
right,
yeah.
or-
This is much more thorough.
And how could we see that in the budget, not the line item, but on the booklet that we're using? How is that?
In the entire department's expenditures are just called public services. So
okay.
all we do is break out the $1.9 million total budget, capital, and then other. So the accounting treatment of that is basically the entire department is under the classification of public services.
Okay.
So that's why you can't see it.
That would also be when compost, when the pre-compost program, the recycling events, all those items are, any,
In that.
yeah, any sanitation labor that's not specifically leaf or brush pickup,
Okay.
because we've separated those ones out.
And this fund is similar to the street funds where internally we've created departments. So there's the what do you got, what are the 2 or 3 departments you have?
The curbside leaf pickup, brush pickup.
Trash disposal.
So-
Oh, no, sorry, that's.
No,
Where I
think
was
that's
just
going
getting at
through.
with that is, we have those classifications so we can track them.
Sure.
But the fund itself is, again, departmental, it's literally, the whole department's a single fund. Or, I mean, yeah, the whole thing is a single line item. So that's why it looks, you see absolutely nothing there. So I may let you peek at the line items just a little bit, you know, to answer your questions. but,
Okay.
You know, unlike what we just talked about, the general fund, there's DPW admin, and then there's street lighting, and then there's
Yes.
this and that. Those are actually larger departments broken out as part of your budget, and they're appropriated at that level. This is appropriated at the total $2 million
Yes.
level. That's-
Thank you.
And I think the only reason we broke those out was the questions, how much does leaf, curbside leaf pickup cost? And we could do estimates, but there was nothing concrete.
Yeah,
These are now-
like
these are
this
broken
is
out.
exactly how.
On your time sheet, it says leaf pickup, and that's how it's built.
Yeah, I was gonna,
Equipment rental, everything goes there, so we've got a much better.
I
handle
like
on
it,
that.
yeah.
I was gonna point out, we were estimating it was around $200,000, and when I look at what it costs plus the capital, it's around $200,000. So, you know, when people say, no way, you can spend that much, well, it's
Yeah,
what it
that's what it
costs.
does.
Yeah.
It's very labor intensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that-
And I think sometimes people are looking at all the components, you know, that it's just, they're looking at, well, it shouldn't cost that much to do that. Well, they're not thinking about the labor, the equipment, any other fees, charges that all go into that.
I mean, if there's ever another community looking at a curbside leaf program, it comes from another start. Once you start, you can't get out of it, and it's
No.
such a monumental task. It's leaves, it should be easy, you're picking up leaves, but there's so many to deal with.
And when do they fall? And they keep falling.
Especially when you're a tree city.
Yeah.
And you're planting
Yes.
too many more trees.
And you can never start early enough or end.
Right.
You're either ending too early, you're starting too late. or-
And then the snow comes before the last
Uh-huh.
pickup.
I also, we should note, and
Right
just,
over Steve's.
Yeah.
that Greg found a typo, thank you. On page 122, that special trash, Carl, that you and I talked about before we
Oh, yes.
came in here.
Carl Schwetfinger's added a number on the revenue side. So.
Yeah, just if you're, so that 58,000, Greg, that you saw in
The special trash, it should be 555, not 5550. So,
Oh.
because again, I'm never, ever, ever gonna have tags. It's against the rules.
It's not that special.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it was a revenue, so too bad it wasn't.
It should be more special.
And again, it takes us from 30 grand of the good back to, you know, same as we were the year before.
Sure.
What is special trash?
That's just revenue for selling colors.
And it was where the bag tags were.
And how much are we making off the recycling, dumpster, I don't know.
The trash,
No, you guys have
cardboard?
recycling, cardboard.
cardboard, so that comes off of our total trash bill, so we don't make a ton, but
Oh,
all that cardboard would have been processed, a lot of this trash.
yeah.
So we get basically we're not paying to dispose of that. That's one of the things
It's
that,
kind of a
when you take it there, it's kind of a break even.
even with the labor and truck.
Yeah.
Remember the good old days when recycling and cardboard used to make money on?
Yeah.
Right.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
You're lucky to break even.
Especially with glass, they aren't that good at glass.
Did you
Well, all
find
this
someone
tariff
now?
stuff, that might change.
Did you find someone now who would sell it?
Yeah, there's another guy out of Ohio, I don't know.
I have a question, do we have plans to put recycling bins in the downtown? You know, we have the trash toters, do we have?
We've talked about doing that.
And the
I mean, I
DDA
think
like
it's a
that.
good thing, but it gets so mixed.
I tried.
That's kind of the issue,
That's
yes.
one of the things that we have.
You can see the shed.
Most cities that have them, a lot of it gets thrown away as trash. That's, once it's contaminated,
Right.
that whole load is
Yeah.
contaminated.
Okay.
But that's something that we've talked about.
Yeah, it comes up here as well from a DDA too, yeah. And that exact same rationale, it's like it just gets, once it gets polluted.
I mean, we really love to see people do the right thing, but.
Well, yeah, and I think there are a lot of people that want to, but then you just, yeah.
Yeah, a couple half-full cups, half-full plastic cups contaminates the whole thing, and now it's trash.
This is a cynical take on it, but makes it look like we're doing the right thing and lets us double the amount of trash containers.
Yeah. We're working with the school district though to get some student interns to monitor those different spots, so to stop somebody from throwing a soda can in their bucket. It's gonna be great. 24/7 coverage. Yeah.
That's a security cameras.
Okay.
With laser beams.
Crystal, move us along.
We're on laser beams. We already talked about We already talked about the sidewalk fund, so this really is just reiterating what we said. We have identified that we do need to do something. We're just trying to figure out what that looks like, but we have put it in the budget so that we can identify that it's there. We're going to talk about it this year, and then come back to you guys and talk about what a plan going forward with it is.
And we reviewed the ordinances, the processes, they all needed overhaul. So when it does get up and going, there'll be a lot of new stuff. We're not going to allow like 45 years to repair it. So,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So literally, we're still rolling stuff to tax from 3 years ago.
So final one though. Final one. So that's all that we have for the presentation. I want to give the floor to you guys though, if there's anything CIP that we didn't cover, questions that we didn't cover. Greg, I know we wanted to talk about the internal admin fees.
Yeah, I still can't figure them out. I've met with Bridget and Carl and Sean and Nate and Matt. I don't know, maybe it's
I think it just comes, this is how I think of it, it just comes down to deciding what kind of mechanism you're going to use, and to get a very specific mechanism is very time, except see, even myself, like if I sat with Sean I end my day and I'm like, I don't know what I just did. And when we talk about, like, if we talked about the water and sewer, if we talked about, if we had a meeting about the sidewalk program, or we talked about whatever, it's hard to have everybody specify their time that way. So a best practice that's used amongst communities is this percentage. And it's really at the end of the day up to you guys. I think, I know that Carl went through kind of the standard percentages, and then you can move them around if you're uncomfortable or comfortable, but it really is just kind of a mechanism in lieu of.
So I have, I guess, two questions. One, how do we know that number is correct? We don't. It's just a percentage, so.
It's an estimate, yep.
But it could be either way too low, so like this account, we're not paying appropriately, or way too high, besides active too low, right? I mean, that won't set you.
Yeah, literally the only two that are not, we have it broken down here. So major local streets, that is the flat 10% that's allowed to us under, I have to do it, on page 3 of the detail that you're not allowed to look at.
Yeah.
So we break it down
10% of the Act 51 revenue we get in major and local, the rules are, that's what you get to charge for admin. And so that, the adjustment to that each year is based on the estimated amount we get for that. Solid waste and water and sewer are really the true funds that there is some variability, that if you so chose, you could adjust that accordingly. The pension fund, we come up with an arbitrary amount. So we collect their taxes, we cut their payrolls, we do all of that kind of stuff. We've come up with an arbitrary $25,000. We do way more internal work than $25,000 for them. But we've come up with that amount, we fixed that amount. It's just acknowledging the fact that we do an awful lot for them, and we take a little slice of their pie. Same with the DDA, $20,000 fixed fee for all of their accounting, collections, disbursements, payroll, all of that stuff comes from there. So literally, those are the only items that we have. For solid waste, we went through this last year. Again, it's $192,000. I didn't even, there's no way in the world I was going to adjust that, upward this year. So that stayed exactly the same. Same with the water and sewer fund. So the water and sewer fund's $400,000, and the solid waste fund is $192,000. And again, it represents an allocation of time spent by city council, city manager, finance, city clerk, IT, communications, treasury, facilities, and the city attorney. So there's about $3.4 million worth of costs in those departments, and of that we allocate $400,000 to the water and sewer fund and $192,000 to solid waste.
So how do we know if it's accurate? We don't.
You will never know it's accurate. These are estimates based on my 30 years plus of historical, approximately how much we spent time with. When I created this last year, it was, hey, city managers, is it a reasonable assumption that you spend approximately, I didn't document, city manager was, you spend about 12% of your time on these types of, on solid waste or whatever. So it was, yes, that seems reasonable to me. City manager is not going to have, her timesheet would be 6,000 lines long if we actually track these things. The attorney doesn't do it, the finance doesn't do it.
So I'm not asking for a minute by minute, because I've been told that that's too expensive to do. But when you add them all up, it's $821,000, which is, to me, a lot of money that's being put into the general fund. If it's not accurate money. So some of these accounts, solid waste, water, sewer, they're specialized accounts. So how do we know that that's accurate? We don't. You're telling me. Like, we're just guessing.
Again, this is the detail behind it. You and I went over it, last year.
So
It's just an estimate of time spent within each department.
Right, so that's where I find it hard to say we know what that number is. It could be 10,000, or it could be $1 million that we should be putting. We have no idea, right?
Well, I have a lot more comfort that it's neither of those extremes.
Okay.
So if I'm testifying in court on our, would you testify that these are reasonable numbers? My answer under oath would be yes. Given what I know, city manager's office, city council's office, these are, a lot of these things, city clerk,
I don't have that part. I had it and I sent it to Crystal.
So if I could, I guess I'm curious, what would the
Carl's got
alternative
one.
be? To that, really, besides a minute by minute.
Exactly, by everybody in that department and looking at the cost within it and everything else. So, yeah, like if you look in MML, there's actually a summary out there it's basically direct costs, a methodology for allocating direct costs. So I've seen it before based on total revenues. I've seen it before based on personnel within each department. I've seen it before based on you can get into allocating facility costs by square footage of the departments. You can get really crazy on this stuff, but you're gonna land around the same spot. So to me, if I'm in your chair and I'm not a numbers person, to me it's just, is it a reasonable cost that I like there? So to Crystal's point, if you think 192 is just too high for the solid waste fund, and you think it should be 170, I think you should make a motion amongst the group and say,
yeah, but
what
if it should be 200? I mean, then you play the opposite game, right?
I really think it should be 2 or a little more than 2, but I'm comfortable with 190. Again, the theory is we have these restricted dollars that we don't charge people directly to. And we're acknowledging the fact that we're incurring costs. Remember the whole argument with solid waste way back when was, we moved all the cost out of there and they, in essence said, let's just keep there, you know, so all the actual time that we were posting there, we moved it all out of there. And this should have been charged there all along, but we got rid of it, and now that it was reintroduced, that's why a lot of people were having troubles with it. But, you know, the reality is, so there's what it is, that's all you're gonna get for backup as far as behind it. So, you know, it should be, you know, I think you said before, well, I don't think the attorney spends 10% of their time.
It's just the easiest for me to comprehend because there's not all the retiree and employee benefits on there. So if we're saying that the attorney, I don't know how much he makes an hour, right?
Well, a total cost of the attorney is $141,000. You can see it right there.
Okay.
So of that department, we're saying 35,000 of the 141 we pay for attorneys.
So 30%.
Yeah, 30% is spent on water and sewer related stuff, and then solid waste is $8,000. So a very small amount. So if you're sitting here today and saying, I don't think he spends $8,000 worth of their time on solid waste, I think that should be $5,000. That's good to go with that.
But then how would I know how much time he's spending on it?
And I know that's your biggest problem. You're never going to know.
Well, I think
That's where I'm like,
for me in budgeting,
I know what I do at my work every day. If my boss came to me and was like, what'd you do this month? I might have to look at my calendar, but I have an idea. Right?
but you have a limited amount of things that it's, like, if you had a fund for every, I don't know, well, I can't really like give the comparison.
Every patient.
Yeah.
You have to track.
Sure, I know exactly.
Well, because they have that in a computer.
But I also, I don't do patients, but like, okay, I worked 3 hours on a PowerPoint for new orientees. I worked 2 hours on presenting that PowerPoint for orientation. I worked 2 hours on new material.
So do you have to do a timesheet every week that allocates that?
We do it a monthly. So I have a calendar that, you know, I put in there. There was 10 people in this class, and that's what I did. So
If you covered like 6 topics in a meeting, hypothetically, or something, do they make you break it down?
we break it
based
out.
on those 6
Yeah, because
topics?
corporate is looking. So it's like, if it's new orientee, if it's working on retention, if it's working on all of these, and then if the other educators worked with me on it, or
Here's the other problem I see though for budgeting, is if we had, like, the year you guys went through bag tags, that solid waste fund would be depleted by all the staff time pulled from it. So it's also like a what's the word I'm looking for? What do we do with the pension?
Smooth.
It's a smoothing of, because it could really like throw a fund off, and it really would make it really difficult to budget on. So I think of when, did Berkeley get hit with the lawsuits for stormwater?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so I think of that year, and that would have depleted that fund because of so much of the attorney time and things like that were, so that's, I think, part of the argument too for not doing it as like that, because you could really kill a fund that way, instead of just like,
but you could with anything.
smoothing it out.
I mean, we could kill a fund with a sinkhole we just talked about.
Well, yeah,
So,
but
I
this
mean,
is almost a guaranteed, like, I don't know
well,
how we
so
would
with a
budget that
sinkhole
way.
though, right?
But I don't know
mean,
how we would budget this way. We're not gonna have a sinkhole every year.
Do you find it an efficient use of your time tracking such?
It doesn't take me
such
long. At the end of the week, I throw it in there. And that's how we now argue that, hey, we need another educator. So it all rolls up, like, we're asking for a resource based on the amount of hours we're working and what we're working on.
So
Go ahead.
I've done consulting work where you have to track per client, and it sucks.
That's an accounting word.
I'm liking her very much these days.
I have to track it in 15-minute increments, make sure I'm charging the right person the right thing, and there's a lot of overhead to it and a lot of, you know.
Sure, I get paid to do that service, though, right? I mean, that's part of my salary every year. It's an expectation of my job.
Yeah, so
We're not budgeted that way.
there's the crux of it. Do we want to be paying extra for everyone to be keeping track of their time in such little minutia? And then we wonder, why can't they get other things done? Why do we have to hire someone else now that we have 70 people, you know, doing this in such great detail? When we have, let's use the example of leaf pickup. We were surprised how much, you know, people are surprised how much it costs, $200,000. Why? It shouldn't be out of the realm of possibility to be surprised at how much administration goes into these things. We're going on best practices that are used widely elsewhere. You know, we're not deviating from, you know, making up our own stuff. These are, you know, well within the range of what other people do to make reasonable estimates. You know, and you know, the other point I was going to make, it does smooth the cost out. You know, so for the attorney, for example, yeah, the concrete example, some years they're not really going to need to do much on the water, but let's say we're going to make a drastic change on the water bill, or we've got to sue a vendor because they screwed up doing the water mains, or we get sued because of a, you know, made up fault claim, you know, then over time that money all evens out. So there is uncertainty. You're not going to be able to get to that exact number unless we put such a tremendous burden on people to track it in such minutia. They don't get things done, and it costs us more than making reasonable estimates.
Yeah, I don't see the benefit in imposing this additional overhead on top of everything we're already asking of our employees. When this is based on a standard practice that's done by so many other communities. We're not the only ones doing this, making stuff up. This is based on solid evidence and decades of work to allocate the funds this way. I'm comfortable with this level of allocation, and I really don't see the benefit of asking how many phone calls did you make yesterday. That just doesn't make sense to me.
Your opinion?
Yeah.
And remember too, this is audited annually, you know, so again, if they disagreed with the approach or the reasonableness of it, they would do it, because the issue, again, I just bring up those two funds. Major and local is a fixed dollar amount for the state. Those other two funds are legally restricted funds with legally restricted dollars. So the auditors, one of their responsibilities is to ensure that only allowable costs get in there. So as part of their annual review, is that a reasonable cost that is charged?
So what would flag them?
Again, they know, they audit a whole bunch of other places. They know what the administrative charges look like.
Because other places might do it differently then, so
right, but again, so I provide them this detail, and so they look, you know, if they looked at this and said, okay, city clerk's office spends 90% of her time doing, you know, solid waste, there's a red flag. That it doesn't spend 90% of her time doing, you know, communication spends 80% of their time. You know, they look at that for reasonableness. And when you look down the list, they're very small percentages. It just adds up because it's a large pool of these general areas that are, you know, that are doing work for these restricted funds that we don't bill for.
I'll add another example. When we look at the water rates, you know, who has the cheapest water rates, Beverly Hills, I believe it is always way at the bottom. It's like there is no way that covers it. So they evidently, as a policy, have chosen that we're going to let our general fund or some other fund cover our actual water costs. Their water costs are not actually that low. So we could say as a, you know, as a policy that we're just going to cover all the administrative out of the general fund. Well, we don't have that luxury. There isn't the money for that. So, you know, so I mean, the crux of it comes to basically people were complaining that this is too much. Where is this coming from? And you know, it's always been there. It's got to be captured somewhere. And we're not cheating people, taking away their money to subsidize the general fund. You know, if anything, it probably goes the other way.
And to your point, unfortunately, to my best try, Novi they chose to not allocate any of these administrative costs because their general fund could afford it, to your point. So I've seen the extreme, and I've also seen the extreme where it is pushing the boundaries. You know, the general funds that are kind of in trouble, where this allocation is double what it is right here, and then you try to justify it, and that's where, you know, the audits get a little testy, and you know, the governing body passes it because we need that from there, but you know, it's got to be within reason, and that's where the auditors look at.
So from what you've seen, do you feel confident saying that we are very safely and squarely in the middle?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you have room for more, but like I say, everything but really water, sewer, and solid waste, they're pretty much capped. We could charge double to the DDA and double to the
pension.
Oh yeah, the pension funds. Yeah, I mean, $25,000 for $20,000. Well, part of it was our priority, or the mayor and council's priority, was the DDA is doing these things in the downtown, and we'd rather have them do that versus pay us $50,000 a year as an administrative fee. Because I could easily put a schedule together that literally 50 to 75 to 100,000 bucks.
And I guess that kind of is my point too, if we're not charging these accounts, why aren't we? Like
Again,
the pension
it's
fund
all
or the
right here.
DDA.
It's all right here. So remember, the DDA's capture wasn't as high as it was, 5 years ago. It's really taken off the last few years. So that's an opportunity for us to say, hey, I think we really have been undercharging you for this, and I think it's time to get more realistic. I've even had the conversations before where we think we should be charging you 75 to 100, and they say, well, we're just going to go hire our own payroll company, and then we'll collect our own taxes. And by the time you add it up, they're like, oh, that is a reasonable cost. Because think about that. They'd have to have their own payroll company, they'd have to collect their own taxes, they'd have to cut their own checks,
Right,
they'd have
we're
to
doing
deposit
it
their own
for-
stuff,
for-
again, for a
Right.
nominal fee, right. And again, that same process, we're doing all that for solid waste, we're doing all that for water and sewer. So when you
Well,
talk about that stuff.
Yeah, it's elevation at one employee, right?
So on
Well,
the,
again, every tax bill that comes in, it has solid waste money on it. It has to be brought in, has to be rung up, has to be distributed at a 2-week basis, that kind of stuff. So-
Every water bill as well, we've got to
And everyone.
So that
Yeah,
involves
it's got the
finance
solid
and
waste,
treasury.
yeah, exactly.
prepare our water bills and.
and on the DDA, if they didn't exist, we would be absorbing that function and have to do it. And we would actually be losing money because they are able to capture money that we are unable
It's
to.
on incremental on
So,
top, yeah.
so it is, they are a separate entity, but it is cooperative because if they weren't doing it, it would fall to us to do it, and we would have to hire a director to do, this kind of thing, and, put together the infrastructure to handle those sorts of things. So, not an exact match on that, I'm okay. I do want to, discuss as new buildings go in, and they've got the tax capture, or if we talk about using pilot programs that we're capturing, that the DDA is paying enough for us to provide the services, because that's, I think, where we could get buried under water and needs to be covered.
The same with the pension board then.
Yeah, especially like the pension board, there's a levy from, that we collect from our residents. So again, a nominal fee being charged versus, if we doubled it, 50,000 still is a nominal fee based on the $2.2 million we're bringing in. Again, we cut their pension payrolls every single month. We collect their
Right,
taxes.
so I mean, we're not,
Yeah.
But the point isn't an arbitrary thing. We can't just arbitrarily say, oh, let's just double this just because, right? I mean, we've set the precedence of these rates over the last how many decades?
Yeah. We would need a complete analysis like this to
Yeah.
be able to go to them to say,
Correct.
here is the justification. And the reason we're saying that is I think we're justified. I can easily put something together that supports, doubling the rate per se. But if I'm on that board, I'm like, you're not doubling it unless
Yeah.
I see some support.
Exactly.
Great. Good discussion.
Okay. Is there anything else that we want to cover before or anything that you guys want to see changed? Because the next step here is we come on the 19th, we have some minor things throughout the budget that we've noted, as well as the document itself that will change for the 19th, and then we will bring a presentation forward to you. Looks different than this one. This one was very specific for our conversation. The conversation with the community will be a little bit different. The things that and then I think even just our conversation has helped me. Like the taxable value chart, for instance, making some tweaks to those things has helped.
Yeah.
So then Carl and I will present on the 19th.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll bring a bag of popcorn.
Bring a microphone.
Yeah,
I
we'll
was
just-
in leopard pants.
Yeah.
I was just curious,
Well,
one of our
hear the
colleagues wasn't able to make it to either of these sessions, Councilmember Black.
Yes,
Is
we
there,
met with him.
I was going to ask
Yeah.
if there was a thought process of how to ensure that he has access to the same information that we've reviewed these last 2 days, so that he can come to the next meeting, hopefully as well informed, if not
Mhm.
more informed than we've been after this session
Yeah.
here. Is that, so it's underway, or you've already?
We already met. We met with him on Friday before he left.
Uh-huh.
I think he was here for 3 hours. So he met with Carl and I. We went through all the budget. We went
Okay.
through. He got to see the slides as we were building them.
Nice.
But we talked through all the things. He had his questions. We talked through those things. So I think he left feeling like everything had been answered. That he was good to go to wherever he's at, Fort something.
Yeah, Fort something.
But yeah, we had a pretty good conversation, and he had quite a few things that he wanted to know. He wanted to talk about further, and so I think we dug into all the things that he needed
Thank
to.
you. Did he raise any issues or concerns that we weren't able to address, like, this or others?
No, he didn't really have any concerns, I would say. He had some
I was
questions.
concerned for him, yeah, he was too nice. Like all the rest of you, this has been a great session.
He had some questions, and just about like the whys behind things.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of I don't think that he brought up any concerns.
Yeah, property taxes, he was trying to figure out, again, the gap between the two, again,
Yeah.
just
Oh, he never
understanding.
wants to see yard waste tied together.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, that's it. If you're gonna
Or
just
bad
get you in, I
lemonade.
don't ever want to see it
Yeah.
again. So.
Or what?
Bad lemonade.
Or bad lemonade? Yeah, there's gonna be a bad lemonade fee.
But also, the one reason I think there's fewer questions, I certainly had fewer questions, is because it was a better document. The line items had more detail, and, so often the things I had to ask in the past, what is this, why is it? Well, it was covered in there.
It
and
makes
so
sense.
they were answered.
If the document did-
Crystal was
My-
big on, I like
Yeah,
to
I'm
see
big
those
on
in there.
notes.
Just,
Yeah.
it helps
Very
her
helpful.
and it helps everybody.
My wife asked me, is that just 8 years of experience? It's like, no, it's a better document.
Could we next year have it earlier?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I know there was a lot of change in that.
Yeah,
with all the
sorry.
people, but-
So we'll definitely put 2 weeks in between when we're sitting down and when you guys get the budget document. Is 2 weeks okay?
At least,
Yeah.
the sooner the better, that way we can come,
Yeah.
if it's like this, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
with the notes.
But it was because we wanted to get you guys this, and that was part of it, and we were I think now that we have a
Year one.
Yes, now that we have a basis, we're just adding to this, and I think we'll be able to produce it a little, I say we even.
And I think the 2 weeks prior is generally sufficient, especially given then that there's a couple of weeks between these meetings
Mhm.
and the final council meeting.
Yeah.
So I think if we look at that full window then with having then almost a month, that
Yeah.
should be enough time.
Okay.
We don't want to spend 3 months talking about a one-year budget.
And this is earlier than some cycles, right? So I remember like this
Usually it's
budget
like
week.
today.
This
It's the
budget
same
week,
week as,
and then we have the softball game the next
Yes.
day
Yes.
on Wednesday. So
Yes.
calendar-wise, this is a couple weeks ahead of schedule, from in the past.
But earlier still would be good.
Yeah, yeah.
So-
And I think that time, that window, I'm assuming, and tell me if I'm wrong, the window of time that you guys have this and then we're sitting down is important too.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think
only
that's
gave you
the
guys
general
the
thing.
week.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
what
I
I-
wanted to-
yeah.
for sure. So
And
just
even-
sum this up.
Just an observation, we're later than we intended just because we couldn't all find a date to meet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it slipped off the original calendar
yeah,
for that.
And I do like it over 2 nights. I feel like last year was a little rushed.
okay, good. So this is,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's gonna
nice.
process
Spread out.
it and so,
Yeah.
it's tough, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. The two's comfortable. It's been doing, and last year was a bit cramped.
And we're still ahead of schedule.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Well, if there are no more questions or comments, I want to thank everyone, Amy, Carl, especially the two of you, and directors and staff that worked on this budget. I know it's never an easy thing every year, but, every year when we sit down to do this, even though I joke like, oh, it's really, the beauty of it for me is seeing the priorities and the things that each department thinks, this is important and this is why we're bringing it forth. And so in light of that, I think it also, now that we have a strategic framework, we've pulled some things together and it feels more, I don't know what the word, like united and like we're all moving in the same direction toward the same goals. And that's a really good feeling to have. So thank you all for that. I want to thank my colleagues at the table too for their thoughtfulness and, again, the camaraderie and the working together is really important. We obviously don't agree on every single thing, but having discourse and being respectful of one another, I'm always proud of that with this council. I listen to some of the stories that my counterparts in other cities tell, and I just cringe. So I'm grateful for your effort and energy on this and the things that you bring to the table. So, have I left anything out? All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Support.
Whoa. Councilmember Patterson, one, two, and support from Councilmember Maloney. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the Tuesday, April 29th budget work session of the Berkeley City Council is adjourned.